The Earth before my eyes has entered an ice age. Global temperatures are dropping with no signs of improvement, but please don't lose hope. The government won't abandon us as long as we stand together. Together, we will definitely overcome this disaster. As we unite, a reporter named Nam is reporting live from the scene when suddenly an airplane crashes right where he is. The TV at Han Fong's house is broadcasting the news. Just then, the signal cuts out, and outside a voice calls out, Han Fong, holding a blood-stained iron rod, peeks through the binoculars and discovers it's Li Huina. The girl he has liked for so long without hesitation, he quickly opens the door. Come in, it's dangerous outside. But Li Huina doesn't just come in, she flings the door wide open and gives Han Fong a passionate kiss. After that, she boldly flirts with Han Fong. Just when their feelings are intense, Han Fong is suddenly attacked by someone causing him to collapse on the spot. In his dying moments, he overhears the two of them talking and realizes. From the very beginning, Li Huina had colluded with that man. They conspired to kill him and seize the supplies he had prepared for the apocalypse. Luckily, heaven is watching. Han Fong is granted a chance to be reborn. He just confirms the time again. It's now June 28th, and the apocalypse starts on July 15th. I was already killed, and now I'm back half a month before the apocalypse, so that means I've been reborn. But this time of rebirth, it seems there are strange symptoms appearing. Han Fong looks down at his right hand, which is emitting a red light. Since waking up, this red light has been surrounding his right hand, but aside from feeling a bit warm, this light doesn't bring him anything, nor does it have any function. At first, he thought he was hallucinating when a cold breeze blew past, making Han Fong sneeze. As a result, his hand suddenly changed from red to green, and the green color kept growing larger, causing Han Fong to be so scared that he didn't dare stay outside on the balcony anymore. He had to duck back inside the house. What could be causing his body to emit light? Han Fong looks at his hand and notices the green light gradually shrinking, but his head suddenly feels dizzy. Like a drop in blood sugar, what on earth is this? Suddenly, a thought pops into Han Fong's head. It seems many stories mention this scene. The main character in the story, after being reborn, gains abilities like a hack. Filled with hope, Han Fong grabs a knife and makes a slash. But the result, aside from burning more calories, doesn't yield any effect. His stomach starts to protest and the fridge is empty. Just when Han Fong fears he might faint from hunger, he luckily spots a jar of roasted soybeans on the table. This is a snack he bought before the apocalypse. While it won't fill him up, at least he has something to nibble on. Han Fong reaches out with his glowing green hand to grab a soybean, but before he can put it in his mouth with a bang, the soybean transforms into a plant. Did that just happen because of the soybean? The feeling of fatigue disappears. The green light also vanishes. Could it be related to this green light? Han Fong picks a fruit from the tree and separates it to check. This is a soybean, so it can't be my power, right? This is indeed a shocking discovery. I have to study this further. But the important thing right now is to gather supplies before the apocalypse hits. On the way to the supermarket, Han Fong starts to piece together the events after waking up. First, the red light appeared on his right hand, then it turned to green. The green light fluctuated in size simultaneously, causing his heart rate to speed up and making him feel more fatigued. Then he used his hand with the green light to hold the soybean, which then turned into a soybean plant. What kind of power is this? While Han Fong was lost in thought, suddenly he hears a familiar voice calling out. Wow, what a coincidence, you're out shopping too, huh? We really have a connection, don't we? Han Fong was taken aback, staring at the girl in front of him. Li Huina, the goddess he had tirelessly pursued for 3 years, willing to do anything for her. I would do my best to satisfy her, even though I knew she saw me as just a spare tire. But I never expected that in the end she would hurt me, leaving me furious. Yet Han Fong had to keep his composure, knowing that now wasn't the time for revenge. Solving the supply issue was far more important. Seeing Han Fong silent, Li Huina couldn't help but worry. What's wrong with you? I've been calling you for ages. Han Fong smiled and replied, Sorry, I just noticed you look even more beautiful today. That's why I was a bit dazed. When did you learn to talk like that? At that moment, she thought she had him hooked and decided to get to the main topic. Since we ran into each other today, how about we go shopping a bit? Han Fong wasn't surprised. He knew she wanted to turn him into her personal ATM for her shopping spree, so he declined and headed straight to Duke Ma's supermarket. This was the largest supermarket in the East, but during the Ice Age it had been completely cleared out overnight, and no one knew who did it just a few days ago. In a crisis, it's essential to stockpile as many supplies as possible: food, warm clothes, medicine, daily necessities, and fuel. The list was long. But the biggest problem right now was Han Fong looking at the meager amount in his bank account, feeling a headache coming on. Just then, he received a promotional message from a loan app, and it felt like a light bulb went off in his head. He downloaded all the loan apps to his phone. After all, in times like this, he wouldn't need to pay it back. Meanwhile, Li Huina was fuming over being rejected by Han Pong when a luxury car suddenly pulled up beside her, and the driver was none other than Han Pong. "Is this your car?" Li Huina asked in surprise. "Yeah, I just bought it. My dad has been making good money abroad for the past 2 years, so he gave me a little. I just dropped him off at the airport," Han Pong replied casually. After a moment of silence, Li Huina suddenly felt emotional. "So you dropped your dad off at the airport today? You didn't know, and you wanted me to take you shopping. Sorry for being so cold earlier. I thought you were going to abandon me," she said, pouting. Seeing her act, Han Pong didn't call her out and pretended to be doting. "How could I abandon you, Huina? You're very important to me." Hearing this, Li Huina felt secretly pleased and continued with some sweet talk. "In my heart, you're also a special presence, Han Fong. Today, can we go eat and watch a movie together? I also want to get to know you better. What do you think?" When she looked up, she saw Han Pong busy with a pile of boxes in the trunk. He had to move all this stuff into his house today. He was too busy. Feeling ignored, Huina sulked. "Why did you buy so much stuff?" "It's nothing, just some things I like." "Oh, and there's a gift I bought for you." Hearing there was a gift for her, Huina quickly perked up and said a few cheerful words before leaving in a hurry. "I can't let her know I'm stockpiling supplies. This stash is my lifeline for survival in the apocalypse, waiting for the end of the world to come. The company still needs to catch the guy who killed me." Just thinking about it makes Han Pong smirk. Now he's a bit excited for the apocalypse to come. On July 15th, the apocalypse begins. Snow will start falling heavily and the temperature will drop sharply to -20 degrees for a month. After that, it will gradually decrease to -70 degrees, covering the world in a thick blanket of white snow, making it impossible to go outside. Therefore, Han Pong needs to stockpile enough food reserves while also sealing off supplies to prevent anyone in the area from discovering his stash. A large amount of food and some sensitive materials require him to transport them at night when no one is around. The power supply system after the apocalypse will be extremely unstable, so Han Pong built a generator for this purpose. And he stocked enough fuel to last a year. When the apocalypse hits, the heating system will stop working, so he needs to upgrade the heating system for the house. He also reinforced the doors, renovated the rooms, and set aside one room for supplies. By the time Han Pong finished everything, it was already the 14th, just a day before the temperature dropped. The next day is the time to handle the most important task, because to survive in this freezing world, relying solely on the supplies he prepared won't be enough. So the ability to turn a seed into a plant will be Han Pong's hope for survival. At this moment, he hesitated, looking at the plate of soybeans on the table. These beans were produced using his powers. But this ability appeared very randomly, and he still hasn't clarified what the activation mechanism is. First, he needs to determine if they are edible. After testing, he confirmed that these soybeans are indeed edible. This means that at least this ability can produce food, so Han Pong continued to research how to use his powers by experimenting with other types of food. However, after too many trials, he ended up exhausting himself and fainting. When he came to, Han Pong found himself in a state of exhaustion. While recharging his energy, he took the opportunity to think about the results he had obtained before fainting. Han Pong had tried many types of food, some of which had no reaction at all. But there were also types like the soybeans that evolved into cooked food, and some even exploded, turning into a black substance resembling coal. Fortunately, these black substances can be burned, so now Han Pong doesn't have to worry about a heat source for warmth anymore. He kept experimenting over and over again, until he fainted again. The success rate was just too random. He had no clear understanding of how this ability operates. There must be a principle behind it. At least he has grasped the conditions for activating this power. The key lies in his consciousness. Han Pong sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and imagined himself in nature with his body and spirit being a part of it. When he opened his eyes, indeed, his hands emitted a green light. After checking the plant system, Han Pong moved on to test the meat system. As soon as he placed his hand on the piece of meat, the green light gradually faded and then disappeared. The meat showed no reaction. Could it be that it only works on plants with doubts? Han Pong tried again. This still didn't work. But while thinking, he could sense two different colors. When he first saw the red color, he hadn't tried it yet. Han Fong thought to himself and changed his hand to red. The piece of meat in his hand began to glow with a red light, but just a second later it turned into a messy mass, causing Han Fong to panic and drop the meat on the floor. Once he calmed down, Han Fong dared to approach and examine this piece of meat. Did the types of meat react with the red light? But it felt like this was just a heating effect. The red light only served to heat things up. It's not just about heating things up, it feels different than that. It's like a process where a substance is dissolving, and the right hand of Han Feng holds a piece of meat while the left activates a blue light and grabs a soybean. If blue represents the evolution of matter and red represents dissolution, then combining these two lights at the moment the meat and soybean collide. It would create a delicious piece of meat much larger than the old one, while the soybean in Han Feng's hand disappears as if it has fused with the meat. Han Feng observes the piece of meat in his hand. Its quality is very fresh. The texture and flavor look just like meat. He tries a bit more, but after a while he wonders why everything has failed. Forget it. I'll set it aside for later research. No matter what, I've still made some progress today. As long as I thoroughly study this ability, I'll be the man standing at the top of the apocalypse. While Han Feng is lost in thought, he suddenly remembers something. Just having food isn't enough. I still don't have anything for self-defense. I need to pack up and head out. Before the temperature drops, I must get a weapon. Just as Han Feng finishes speaking, snow begins to fall. Wandering the streets, he can't help but feel anxious. The temperature will drop to minus 45 degrees within a week. I need to hurry and find a gun. But buying guns is illegal, and I don't have any connections to get one. What should I do? While Han Feng is deep in thought, a shout from a man not far away startles him. I'm investing thousands into this project. Do you know the old Wang from the Lita group at the Westport? That boss over there is my big brother. This guy seems somewhat familiar. His flashy style of dressing stands out. People in the neighborhood call him the rogue Li Ziming, or simply Li Ge. He lives in the same neighborhood as Han Feng and is said to help people with construction contracts. He probably makes a decent amount here. Even if he doesn't have a legitimate job, he still gives off a very busy vibe. Maybe he has a way to get a gun. Thinking this, Han Feng takes the initiative to approach Li Ziming. Hey Li, long time no see. Li Ziming looks at Han Feng with a scrutinizing gaze. Do we know each other? It's me, Xiao Han. We greeted each other before. You haven't forgotten me, have you, Li? Han Feng forces a smile and replies, Oh, Xiao Han, I've been so busy with the project lately, my memory isn't that great. Don't hold it against me. What's going on? Han Feng glances around and then leans in to whisper his desire to buy a gun to Li Ziming. Li Ziming, upon hearing this, is shocked and exclaims, What? What do you need that for? Han Feng feels a bit guilty. He doesn't know how to respond at that moment. Listen, I need to be clear with you about this. Doing something illegal like that isn't right. Guns are not something you can just mess around with. Even though I have connections, I can't let you get hurt. Li Ziming warns Han Feng with a serious expression. Come on, don't get worked up. You misunderstood me. Actually, I have some personal grievances and just want it for self-defense. Han Feng recounts the day he was biking to work and encountered a guy spitting indiscriminately who just happened to spit in his face. When he confronted him, the guy unexpectedly spat in his face again. Han Feng recounted that day he was cycling to work when he encountered an old man spitting carelessly, and just as he approached to talk to him, the man spat right in his face again. After that, I gave him a beating before leaving. He said he wanted to take revenge on me, and the next day he brought people to ambush me at the intersection, saying that if he saw me again, he would beat me up. I've never had to endure such humiliation, so I wanted to find a weapon for self-defense. That's basically the situation. When Li Tungia heard Han Feng's story, he was completely convinced, angrily cursed a few times, and then agreed to help Han Feng find a weapon. Lai will help you with this, and I will immediately contact my big brother. Right now we'll go together. Thank you, Han Feng, I appreciate it. Then let's take the bus. If it weren't for my Ferrari being in for maintenance, I would drive you myself. Then Han Feng pressed the car control button and smiled. Come on, ride in my car. The snow is quite heavy now. Sitting in the car, Li Tungia nodded and said, Hey kid, you're doing well in business. How much did this car cost? About 700,000, Han Feng honestly replied. Not bad, that's quite cheap. Li Tungia said while quickly taking a selfie to post online as if this car belonged to him. Following Li Tungia's directions, they quickly arrived at the place of Li, the boss of a gang that Li Tungia knew. Li shouted, Why are you coming to find me so late? I'm here to see Boss Lu to handle a little business. As he spoke, Lee Tungia placed a red envelope on the table and said quickly, I'm busy, Boss Lu, but his attitude softened somewhat compared to before. This is my little brother here who wants to ask you to buy some goods. He wants to buy a gun. Boss Lu squinted at Han Fong, staring at him. You're looking for me just to buy a piece of junk. I thought it was something serious. Kwang Tu, the man standing next to Boss Lu, replied, then took a gun out of his jacket. 6000. Boss Lu said, What I want is something a bit longer. The kind with a scope for sniping, huh? You mean a sniper rifle? What do you want to buy it for? You think you can just have it? This is the only short one available. If you like it, take it. Seeing Boss Lu's excited demeanor, Lee Tunghia spoke up. This matter has to be said. 5 years ago, his wife... After a while, it was too horrifying. How could all 3 kids not be his? Horrifying, Boss Lu angrily slammed the table and scolded. Lie, this is too ridiculous. Han Fong thought to himself, yet this Boss Lu actually believed it. He immediately said to Han Fong, Isn't it a sniper rifle? This matter, Boss Lu will help you arrange it. You just have to wait a few days. Then he ordered Kwang Tu to arrange it for this little brother. See if you can find a semi-automatic one. Get a few more bullets, too. Lee Tunghia turned to smile at Han Fong. See, I told you it would be quick. Suddenly, Boss Lu pulled the 6000 gun out in front of Han Fong. Take it, it's a gift. Han Fong accepted the gun and then responded by saying to Boss Lu, Brother Lu, my colleague, works in the government and has recently revealed that due to unusual weather, they're preparing to restrict the trade of supplies. It's best to stock up a bit more. Boss Lu looked at Han Fong, seeing his serious expression. He clicked his tongue and said, got it. Now get lost. Lao Tu saw him again and felt annoyed. On the way back to the car, Lee Tungia proudly said, See how nice it is that I helped you. My kind big brother can even get artillery for you. Thanks, Lee, for your help. Later I'll buy you some cigarettes to take with you. Buying cigarettes. You're being too polite, little brother. I always find joy in helping others, but if you really want to give something, just stick to giving flowers. You know, if you smoke something else, you'll end up coughing. Don't buy too many. 7 or 8 should be enough. Once that project of yours is done, I'll take you to the sauna, Li Xinyang happily replied, while Han Feng was too busy thinking to pay attention to her words. The supplies and weapons are all ready now. At least during the early stages, if we can get through it safely, the next step is to really focus on researching our capabilities, especially if we can completely solve the food issue. Then the survival rate during the apocalypse will significantly increase. The snow made the ground slippery, and Han Feng was so lost in thought that he didn't notice the consequence. He slipped and fell flat on his face right at the entrance. Ouch, I think my leg is broken. Hey, could you take me to the hospital? Han Feng was in so much pain he was shaking quickly, pulling out his car keys to hand to Li Xinyang. You don't have a license. Oh, right, you don't have it with you. You can't drive without a license. I have a way, I'll help you over there. Just lean on me, Li Xinyang said, using all her strength to lift Han Feng. He simply replied with a short phrase, Let's take a taxi. I have money. Meanwhile, at the hospital office, Qin Yen was on duty when she received a call from the head nurse asking her to come to the lobby because there were too many patients. I'll be right there. At the same time, Han Feng was sitting in the room listening to the doctor's diagnosis. You've got a broken bone. It needs to be stabilized. After I stabilize it, you'll need to stay in the hospital for another hour for observation. Then just get the medication. Han Feng had no choice but to follow the doctor's orders and went out to the lobby to wait. Li Xinyang had something urgent to attend to, but she reminded Han Feng to call her if anything came up. Take it easy, okay? Han Feng replied and looked around. Due to the sudden drop in temperature and the snowstorm, the number of accidents skyrocketed and emergency beds were being added outside the emergency room. How long do I have to wait to get my medication? Han Feng sighed in frustration. At that moment, a beautiful figure caught his attention as she glided past the head nurse who had just finished tending to the patient in bed number 5. Could you please check? Qin Yen responded with a nod and approached to carefully check each patient. Han Feng couldn't take his eyes off her, feeling a sense of admiration. She was so young, yet already the head nurse. Exceptional skills, a good attitude towards patients, and she was beautiful too. However, Han Feng noticed Qin Yen squatting down to talk to a young patient, inadvertently revealing her underwear, which made him feel embarrassed. Just a bit careless, I guess. Sure enough, it didn't take long for a sleazy guy to show up. An older man sitting in the same row as Han Feng suddenly called out to her. Hey, head nurse, come here. She smiled and approached him, asking, "I'm sorry, but we're short-staffed right now. Could you wait a bit for me to help you?" "Oh, my back hurts again." "I've been feeling worse. Could you check what the issue is?" He was deliberately trying to distract Qi Ningyan while his other hand was secretly slipping his phone under her skirt. "I'm sorry, but we need to take an x-ray first. Then we can determine the cause." Seeing Qi Ningyan's innocent expression, he felt emboldened to get closer and touch her, but suddenly something heavy flew in from nowhere. It hit him, causing him to fall back, and his phone slipped from his hand. "Sorry, I accidentally dropped it. Your phone didn't break, did it?" Han Feng pretended to be apologetic and directly picked up the man's phone, causing him to panic and shout, "Don't touch my phone, you little brat! Give it back to me!" Sure enough, Han Feng held up the photo he had secretly taken of him. "Wow, you've got some guts, huh? Even the hospital staff and you dared to sneak a shot and even get physical. If you don't want to get caught by security and taken to the police station, you'd better get lost. Of course, I can't return the phone to you. Next time, if I catch you again, I'll expose you and you'll be trending on Hot Search." That uncle was furious, but couldn't do anything, his face dark as he left the hospital. Isn't he also in pain? Why is he running so fast? Han Feng looked at Qing Hian in shock, unable to believe it. There are still people in the world who are this naive. Earlier, he secretly filmed under her skirt. Han Feng pointed at the secretly taken photo of Qing Hian, and at that moment, Qing Hian panicked and said, "Is that really me? How did I not notice?" "You can either delete everything or report it to the police. It's up to you. But you should still be cautious in the future. Don't let anyone take advantage of you." Qi Ningyan happily took the phone and smiled, saying thank you. "I wanted to ask earlier, is your leg injured?" Han Feng then remembered his injured leg and exclaimed in pain. Qi Ningyan helped Han Feng bandage the wound before feeling reassured to take care of other patients. Before leaving, she reminded him to come back in a week to change the dressing. "Uh-huh." Han Feng smiled in response, secretly thinking, in a week maybe I won't see you again. The next day, emergency news broke that all areas in China would be hit by a particularly heavy snowstorm and a temperature drop within the next 24 hours, according to our reporters overseas. Currently, temperatures are dropping sharply all over the world, and Chinese experts, along with 46 other countries, are urgently heading to the United Nations to discuss the cause. However, experts responded that this weather wouldn't last long, but please pay attention to the disaster warnings set by the police and local authorities. I hope everyone doesn't panic, doesn't believe in rumors, and doesn't hoard supplies. This disaster will pass quickly. Han Feng listened to the news on TV and sighed in frustration. The government always hides the truth using fake news to calm the people. If it weren't for having been fooled once, he would have believed it too. In short, this time he stocked up on enough supplies, reinforced the house, and prepared heating equipment. Everything is ready. For now, he wouldn't have to worry about this issue anymore. Han Feng was sipping a glass of wine when his phone kept buzzing with notifications from the neighborhood chat group. Han Feng skimmed through the comments, and some made him jump. "Everyone listen to me. This big snowstorm isn't caused by the weather. It's caused by something inside the Earth. Remember, this isn't a normal snowstorm. The North Pole is about to collapse." The North Pole. Who is this person and how do they know about the North Pole? This name from the outskirts seems worth noting. Han Feng thought to himself and continued to observe the chat group. Residents in the apartment complex were messaging, "Can the landlord clear the snow in the neighborhood a bit? We can't even get our cars out." "That's right. I'm in a hurry to go to the supermarket to buy some food. Haven't all the residents paid their fees?" "Landlord, hurry up. The entrance to the neighborhood needs to be cleared too, or the supermarket will run out of supplies with all this snow piling up. Do you all still want to drive out? You can't even get to your own neighborhood a bit. So what should we do? It's already minus 20 degrees outside. Are we really going to walk out?" "Exactly. Who knows how long this snowstorm will last? I've heard everyone is frantically stocking up on supplies. If we don't leave soon, we might miss the landlord. Come on, give us an answer." A staff member from the landlord's side replied, "I'm sorry, the situation is overwhelming and our manpower is currently limited. The residents in the apartment complex are messaging." "What are you landlords doing? You can't even solve such a simple issue. Just return the apartment fees already. Give us our money back." Han Feng thought to himself that this argument was completely pointless. There simply weren't enough people to clear the snow. At this moment, the landlord of Unit June 1st 1204 messaged, "Everyone stop arguing." Someone recognized that the landlord of Unit June 1st 1204 messaged. A classmate thought the landlord of Unit 1204 was messaging about the heavy snowfall. "Even if we clear it, it will be covered again in a few hours. Instead of arguing, we should all work together to clear the snow so we can get out sooner. The landlord is also a person facing a natural disaster, so there's not much they can do. Besides, you guys are just venting your frustrations, right? The response to this was a barrage of questions from others in the apartment complex. Who do you think you are to come and lecture us? Are you the landlord? Why are you defending them? Exactly, are you with the landlord? A classmate thought to message, I'm not defending the landlord, I'm just sharing my perspective. Right now, pressuring the landlord doesn't make any sense. This situation can't be resolved and we can't get the results we want. The residents in the apartment complex saw the logic in this and decided to ease up a bit. So what do you suggest we do? Exactly, are we just supposed to wait until we starve to death? At the very least, driving to the supermarket is out of the question. A classmate thought to message, even if the roads in the neighborhood are cleared, who can guarantee that the outside is clear, I suggest walking to you guys if you're willing. I can go down and help the landlord clear the path, Han Feng thought to himself. I seem to have some impression of this person named Tuang. I remember that before my rebirth, he was always very lively. Right now, someone messaged, this is getting a bit complicated. If you want to go out, you have to clear the snow. If you're not going out, then just keep quiet. After messaging, this person went offline. The reasoning was simply to message about clearing the snow. It's so noisy all day, it's annoying. I'll go down to help too. Hurry up and clear the path. I still have to discuss business with my big brother. It's a project worth millions. Han Feng smirked, thinking that this tone sounded like someone he knew. Someone took the lead and others quickly followed suit. I'll go too. Me too, count me in. Han Feng also saw a message from Li Huina, I'm running out of food at home. I need to go buy some for the next few days. Although I've been a bit sick these past 2 days, I've already set a good example. I'll go down to help too. Those guys who don't have a girlfriend should message a good man like this here. How could we let our Huina down like this? Just stay home and rest up, that's all you need to do. Li Huina thanked everyone for their concern, so the cleaning will have to be handled by everyone, right? Han Pong quietly closed the chat group, mumbling to himself, pretending to be all dramatic like that. Huina really knows how to get to me. I saw someone sent a private message to me, so I opened it, and it was from Li Huina Han Fong. What have you been busy with these days? I already agreed to get in touch with you. I'm still waiting for you. Right when you come to find me, could you swing by the supermarket and grab some food? Buy a bit more and wait for me, okay? Looking at a few text messages, along with a seductive photo of Li Huina Han Pong muttered, in this weather, wearing so little is just trying to tempt me, huh? Trying to make me a runner, huh? That's quite a high price. I wonder how I should reply. Hey, got it. Not long after, Li Huina received a message from Han Pong, and when she read it, she got so angry that she threw her phone onto the bed and shouted, Han Pong, you jerk! Just wait. Time is passing. Today is the second day after the snow fell and the outdoor temperature is minus 20 degrees. We're still in the early days of the apocalypse and the heating system is still working. There's also the internet, so people's daily lives are still going on. Han Fong was just sitting in his room scrolling through some videos to kill time. It's only the second day and I'm already feeling bored. It seems the biggest problem in the apocalypse is learning how to endure loneliness, and my injured leg isn't looking too good. It's a serious injury to the tendons. It will take a few months to fully recover. Sighing quietly, Han Pong continued scrolling through videos, and then he stumbled upon an interesting science segment. Is there really someone who knows how to heal wounds? The doctor confirmed that this man, after jumping from the 15th floor, found that his internal organs and bones began to recover. Is this real or fake? Please stay tuned for the next episode. That's right. Why didn't I think of this before? Han Fong quietly exclaimed, smiling as a blue light emitted from his hand, placing it on his bandaged leg. A few minutes later, the blue light faded away. Han Fong, feeling disappointed, lay back on the sofa. It seems I was overthinking it. I thought the blue light would help heal the wound. Just as he said this, Han Pong yawned, gradually drifting off to sleep and dreaming a strange dream. In that dream, Han Pong was dressed in tribal clothing, riding on the lead goat, leading a herd of goats running wildly. Suddenly, he was thrown off by the lead goat, injuring his leg and causing it to bleed. Suddenly, a goat came over, intending to lick Han Pong's wound with its tongue. Han Fong pushed its head away with his hand, and the goat angrily extended its tongue. It wrapped around Han Pong's injured leg and lifted it up high. A second later, where they made contact, a blue light began to emit, and at that moment, Han Pong jolted awake from the dream. What kind of chaotic dream is this? While talking, Han Fong suddenly noticed that his injured foot was glowing with a blue light and thought of something. Han Fong quickly removed the bandage and tried to take a step. It seemed like the pain was gone. Could it be that the blue light healed itself while I was sleeping? He thought and decided to test it a bit more, so he went to get a knife. Trembling, he made a small cut on his fingertip, and in an instant the blue light flared up on his injured hand. Seeing this, Han Feng smirked slightly. So that's how it is. I understand now. Meanwhile, outside in the courtyard, the people in the neighborhood were working together to clear the snow, creating a path out after pushing aside a large tree that blocked the way. Tang Hu. You clapped his hands and said, "Everyone's been working hard." Uncle Lu, you've worked hard. On a heavy snow day like this, we still have to trouble you, Uncle Lu. Kwang Ru pointed at the two Kim brothers, laughing. I don't have that kind of strength. It's all thanks to these Kim brothers. The two Kim brothers smiled shyly. Just then, Kim Chi-ning slipped and fell flat on the ground. The two Kim brothers rushed over to help, one reaching out and saying, "Are you okay? The ground is all icy. Be careful now." I'm fine, thanks, Kim Chi-ning said while laughing, grabbing the hand of the other and getting pulled up. Then Kim Tai-van said, "All right, we'll go clear the main path first. If you need any help, just call us." Kim Chi-ning smiled and said, "You guys go ahead, I can handle another spot." Tang Hu. You said to Lu Kwang Ru, "The snow is getting thicker. We need to make the most of our time when we go shopping later." Liu Kuang-ru agreed, saying, "That's right. Speaking of shopping, I just remembered something." Tang Hu. You asked, "What is it, Uncle Lu?" Lu Kuang-ru scratched his head and replied, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I heard that a household in the neighborhood has been moving in for the past few days. They've been unloading a lot of stuff into their house." Tang Hu Yu laughed and said, "Isn't that pretty normal?" "Maybe it's a new household or they're renovating," Lu Kuang-ru said. "But I saw a gas tank and a stove. It doesn't look like a regular move. It's like they're preparing for winter." Just then, the two Kim brothers came over and said, "Brother Tang, Uncle Lu, the main path is clear now. We can probably get through." Lu Kuang-ru spoke up, "Oh, you two twins have worked hard." Suddenly, a young man smoking with his arms draped over the shoulders of the two Kim brothers chimed in. "What were you guys saying about preparing for winter? Sounds interesting." A moment later, a snowball hit the neck of the smoking young man from behind, and Liu Yen brushed his hands off, saying, "Ngo Ton Hu, stop being lazy and get to work." Ngo Toan Hu angrily pointed at Liu Yen and shouted, "I'm lazy. Clearly I'm the one doing all that work while you just stand there watching." Liu Yen brushed Ngo Toan Hu's hand aside and said, "Hey, don't point at others." Tang Hu. You spoke up. "You two stop arguing. The main path is clear now. Everyone can take a break and prepare a bit. Let's all go to the supermarket to buy stuff." Kim Chi-nui happily raised his fist and shouted. The two Kim brothers took out their phones and whispered, "We need to buy a lot of things. I sent a message to Mom to see if there's anything we need to buy for the house." Liu Guang asked if he'd thought about the little things. "What do you think about this? Is there any connection to this disaster?" Liu Guang fell silent for a few seconds, then turned back with a smile and said, "Honestly, I didn't pay attention to this. This is just a short snowstorm. It will stop soon and life will return to normal. So for now, I don't see any connection between those two things. Stepping back for a moment, even if this snowstorm doesn't stop, if someone stockpiles a large amount of supplies in the neighborhood, it wouldn't be a good thing for us." Liu Guang scratched his head and laughed, saying, "You're right. Young people really are smart." After a while, Liu Guang, with a backpack on his back and an umbrella in hand, turned to everyone and shouted, "Please line up to go outside. Don't push. The snow is getting heavier. Try to come back in 3 hours." Behind him, everyone also had backpacks and umbrellas following Liu Guang. In Han Feng's room, he was sleeping soundly when he was awakened by the knocking of Li Ziming. "Open the door, bro!" Han Feng, with a sleepy face, came out and said, "Is that you, Brother Li? Sorry, I just woke up." Outside, Li Ziming was holding a long bag and smiled, saying, "Bro, here's the stuff you needed. It's a semi-automatic gun, by the way." Li Ziming handed the gun bag to Han Feng and said so. Liu said, "Thank you for reminding me about the supplies." Han Feng took the bag and smiled. "You're too polite, Liu." Suddenly, Li Ziming sighed, and Han Feng asked suspiciously, "What's wrong?" Li Ziming replied, "Do you know what happened at the supermarket in the East District? We cleared all the snow today and went shopping, but the supermarket was cleaned out overnight." Han Feng was surprised and exclaimed, "Cleaned out overnight?" He thought to himself, "It really happened." Li Ziming said, "Well, I'm heading back now. Dress warmly." Han Feng smiled and said, "All right, I'll go back to my room." His expression turned serious as he thought. How could the supermarket be cleaned out overnight without a sound I remember reading in a comic about some powers that could suck all items into a space? Could it really be possible? Could there really be someone with spatial powers? This makes me uneasy. I need to study my abilities well. If someone with different powers appears... At least I should be able to handle it. I need to know. My ability can react to various foods to achieve survival effects, but the success rate is incredibly low. With soybeans, it takes about 10 tries to succeed once. And with meat, it's even harder. 10 tries might not yield a single success. What is going on? While pondering, Han Feng picked up a soybean and activated the blue light. A few seconds later, with a pop, the soybean in his hand had turned into a black substance like coal. Han Feng's facial muscles twitched as he looked at the black lump in his hand, thinking to himself, the failure rate is way too high. Today I have to clarify the method of using time when the clock strikes 10:45. Han Pong is panting, looking at the soybean in his hand beside the table. It's a black material piled up in a heap. Finally, I've grasped a bit of how to use it. It turns out that when using the blue light, its energy isn't fixed. Each type of food needs a specific energy point to work together. If it's not right, it will fail. Wait a minute, this mode feels very familiar. It's that online dance music game that many people loved over 15 years ago, comparing energy values with the up, down, left, right buttons. So every second, the energy input needs to be completely accurate to finally grasp that limit point. Thinking of this, Han Pong couldn't help but experiment, and the result was a tender green soybean. Next, he tried various types of meat. The different types of meat and vegetables are not the same. After failing, they turn into a disgusting black liquid. Han Fong thought to himself as he went into the kitchen to grab a piece of meat. The principle is probably not much different. First, I need to determine all the necessary energy for the type of meat. The time seems to be longer compared to vegetables. Han Fong thought everything would go smoothly, like with the soybean, but the piece of meat in his hand soon turned into a pile of black goo emitting a foul smell. However, Han Fong did not give up and continued to experiment, repeating the process countless times. Finally, his persistence paid off. The initial piece of meat had grown larger. It turned into a huge thigh of meat many times bigger. Han Fong smirked, exhausted, and fell back onto the floor, thinking to himself that he finally found the successful method for the meat. The next day, Han Pong lay on the sofa watching the news on TV. Good morning, viewers. Today is July 17th, the third day of the snow disaster, this time all over the country. Is experiencing an exceptionally large snowstorm, a once-in-a-hundred-years event. To ensure the livelihood of the public, all areas are actively working to mitigate and reduce the damage from the disaster. Because of this major snowstorm, transportation, electricity, and networks nationwide have become paralyzed. Please be patient while rescue teams come to repair. The government is also providing relief supplies to affected areas. Therefore, I hope everyone, if there's no specific reason, must stay indoors. Just like in my previous life, everywhere is starting to become paralyzed. Sighing softly, Han Fong opened his phone to check the situation in the chat group of the apartment complex and saw everyone starting to argue. He thought to himself that the arguments were quite intense, apparently, due to the news they saw. Some people believe that rescue teams will come as the news says, but there are still some debating how they can save themselves right now. A message from Liu Guangxiao appeared in the chat group, catching Han Fong's attention. Do people really believe the content in the news? If the situation has been controlled as the news says, the rescue team would have arrived by now. But until now, I haven't seen any trucks filled with supplies as mentioned. On the contrary, I've heard friends say they've seen many armored tanks and heavy weapons heading towards City A. So there's only one possibility: war is about to break out. After reading Liu Guangxiao's message, the people in the chat group appeared confused and scared. Is this real? Then aren't we doomed? Han Pong thought to himself that he seemed to have heard about the outbreak of war before his rebirth. In the chat group, a friend appeared and messaged, if what Uncle Lu predicts is true, we should find something to protect ourselves. Currently, there's still the landlord. Since we haven't stocked enough food, we have to go hungry. Since he hadn't stocked up on enough food, he had to go hungry. But the government relief supplies might not arrive on time. I believe we should first establish our own relief organization to help those in need in the neighborhood. So I propose that for now, the residents of the neighborhood who have enough food should donate a little to those who are struggling, starting with me. I will donate half of my food. If anyone needs help, feel free to come find me anytime. Ingo Toan Hu, please let them know that I'm willing to help the people in the neighborhood. We can support each other and get through this crisis together. On this freezing day, no household should go hungry. If we're going to donate, count me in. Huena, you should donate a little too. At that moment, Li Huena sat in her room, angrily staring at her phone screen and muttering, Are you sick? Go Tuan Hu, why are you asking me instead of others? It's because I didn't agree to be your girlfriend before, right? In the chat group, Li Huina appeared pitiful, texting, "I'm really sorry, but we actually have no food left at home." A young man stepped up and messaged Huina, "Everyone is out of food already. Why didn't you ask someone else?" Ngo Toanhu replied, "How would I know? I just hope that the neighbors can unite. If we can't ensure real unity, I won't bother donating." Someone agreed and messaged, "Honestly, no one wants to be enemies." The chat group fell silent for a moment. Everyone seemed to be pondering. A few minutes later, they made a decision and messaged back, "If we're donating food, count me in for a portion. Count me in, too. Does anyone need clothes? I have medicine at home. If you need it, just come and take it." Tuang Hokhu messaged, "Then I'll represent the residents of the neighborhood to thank everyone. How many people are there? Let's just appoint one representative to be in charge, equivalent to forming our own temporary emergency committee responsible for collecting and distributing the donated supplies." Upon reading this, Han Fong smirked in disdain, thinking, "A temporary committee. I remember there was something like this before I reincarnated. It's just a trick to swindle food supplies from the people." Time passed, and on July 19th, the 5th day of the apocalypse, the outside temperature dropped below -40 degrees. The heating system had completely failed due to the extreme weather, and everyone was trying to find ways to stay warm. The situation was getting worse, just like before Han Fong reincarnated, except for his place, which was being heated by a large heater. The fuel was the black material from his failed ability tests. He was sitting on the sofa, playing games with a table full of food and drinks. Suddenly, his phone on the table rang. Han Fong picked it up and answered hello. The person on the other end said, "Hello, is this Mr. Han Fong from household 1.801? I'm the person in charge of the 8th floor. In 20 minutes, we'll be clearing the road. After clearing the snow, please come down to the parking lot to check in." Han Fong angrily cursed, "Are you blind? It's snowing heavily outside." "You guys are cleaning, I'll clean your fur," he grumbled, but 20 minutes later, Han Fong still showed up in the lobby on the 1st floor with a reluctant expression. He thought to himself, "Forget it for now. Don't clash with the neighbors. I need to minimize the risk of my secrets being exposed." He walked with the crowd toward the entrance. Han Fong was surprised to see that the snow had piled up high, covering more than half of the entrance door of the apartment complex. The others were also shocked and exclaimed, "Wow, we just cleared this yesterday. I've never seen snow this high in my entire life." The surprise faded away. Someone suggested opening the door right away. The man in the brown coat near the door heard this and tried to push the door open, but it wouldn't budge. So he looked towards Han Fong and a few young people nearby. "Hey, you guys with black hair over there, come help out." Han Fong and the nearby young people. Hearing this, they all headed towards the door. I shouted, "1, 2, 3 together!" Under the man's direction, everyone pushed hard and successfully opened the door. Instantly, a cold wind swept in, cutting through the room, and the snow was just too much. "It's so cold I can barely open my eyes." Cries echoed as everyone, despite wearing many layers, couldn't withstand the harshness of the snowstorm. So they had to retreat deeper inside to get away from the door, which eased things a bit. Han Fong curled up in a corner, silently thinking it was so cold that if he went outside, he would surely freeze to death. The others were also shivering and talking to each other. Right now, going outside to clear the snow would definitely lead to freezing to death. With this amount of snow, only a madman would go out. Suddenly, a shout came from outside. Hearing that voice, Han Fong was shocked and thought to himself, "That's the voice." He turned around and saw Li Tunghia coming over saying, "What are you cowards doing? You need some guts." Han Fong smirked, thinking, "That's definitely our Li." Seeing Li Tunghia heading towards the door, some kind-hearted people advised him not to show off. This isn't a joke. "That's right, let's wait until the snow stops first." Li Tunghia ignored him, took a long drag from his cigarette, and charged outside. In just a few breaths, he disappeared into the thick snow, and only a few breaths later, everyone heard his cries for help. "Help, help!" Upon hearing this, they rushed over and managed to pull Li Tunghia out his face, turning purple, and closed the door. Han Fong went over to support Li Tunghia and asked, "Lai, are you okay?" Then he looked at the people around and suggested, "You all should head to the parking lot to find the person in charge and take attendance. Let's wait for the snow to stop and then think of a plan. Right now, we can't rely on manpower to clean up." After a while in the parking lot, Tuang Hok-hu stood at the center of the crowd and spoke. "There's really too much snow right now. Let's wait for it to lessen before we start cleaning up. After that, this underground parking lot will become a supply donation point and also a distribution center." Han Fong stood in the crowd staring at Tuang Hok-hu, silently saying to himself, "So this is the Tuang in the group. So the trick of the emergency committee is led by him, huh?" Tuang Hoc Hu continued, "Once again, thank you all for your help. I never expected so many households would be willing to donate their supplies. The generous donations from everyone have helped a lot for the residents in need. Once again, on their behalf, I thank you all." The crowd responded. Every family faces tough times. Helping each other is the right thing to do. As long as we unite, I believe we will definitely overcome this crisis. Han Fong thought to himself, "Look, the disaster won't stop. Just wait a little longer and they'll regret it." Beside him, Li Tunghia trembled and said, "Bro, I'm going upstairs first." Han Fong silently thought to himself that accidents wouldn't stop. Soon enough, those people would regret it. Next to him, Li Tunghia was trembling and spoke up, "Old brother, I'll head upstairs first." Han Fong nodded and said, "All right," just as he suddenly noticed Kim Chin-yen carrying several boxes into the crowd. In her carelessness, she tripped and fell backward. Seeing this, Han Fong quickly ran over to help her up and asked, "Are you okay?" "Thank you," Kim Chin-yen said, looking up at her helper. When she realized it was Han Fong, she exclaimed, "Oh my, how did you recover so fast?" Han Fong hurriedly explained, "I've had a strong recovery ability since I was little. A normal fall like this will heal in just a few days, so that's why." Kim Chin-yen, without a hint of doubt, believed Han Fong's lie. Her eyes sparkled as she raised her fist and praised, "So that's how impressive it is." Seeing this, Han Fong let out a sigh of relief. He took the stack of boxes from Kim Chin-yen's hands and said, "I'll help carry these for you." Kim Chin-yen replied, No, they're really heavy." Han Fong smiled and said, "I have a lot of strength. Consider it a thank you for helping me bandage up." She responded, "If you say so, then I guess I'll trouble you." With that, Kim Chin-yen let go of her grip in an instant. Han Fong felt his entire body drop, almost dropping the boxes he was holding. He struggled to lift them, his body trembling a bit. He forced a weak smile and asked, "Can I ask what you have in these boxes?" Kim Chin-yen smiled and said, "You want to know what's in this box?" "Mainly some medical supplies and a few things I need to bring out for a donation. Is it a bit heavy? Should I help you?" Seeing her adorable expression, Han Fong felt energized and spoke up. "No need, I feel completely fine." Kim Chin-yen laughed and said, "Don't push yourself too hard. My strength is actually much greater than many men." Han Fong was surprised and asked, "Really, have you always had such strength since you were little?" Kim Chin-yen slightly lowered her head and softly said, "It's not exactly that. There are a few other reasons." Seeing her like this, Han Fong expressed some doubt and asked, "Huh?" Kim Chin-yen regained her composure and smiled. "Oh, it's nothing, sorry, it's just that some situations came up anyway. I can't even explain it clearly myself." Changing the subject, Kim Chin-yen asked, "Oh, right, I don't even know your name." Han Fong replied, "I'm Han Fong." Kim Chin-yen placed her hands behind her back, turned to look at Han Fong, and smiled. "My name is Kim Chin-yen. It's nice to meet you." Her appearance made him blush, and he was stunned for a few seconds while Kim Chin-yen seemed unaware. She continued smiling and asked, "So Han Fong, what do you do for work?" Han Fong replied, "I'm a freelancer." Kim Chin-yen exclaimed, "Wow!" Han Fong asked, "What's so surprising about being a freelancer?" At that moment, someone brushed past and accidentally bumped into Kim Chin-yen, causing her to lose her balance and lean toward Han Fong, her chest pressed against his arm. This made him blush again. Kim Chin-yen also turned red and quickly pulled back, saying, "Sorry." Han Fong replied, "It's fine." Not far away, Li Huina had seen the ambiguous actions of the two. She stepped forward and said, "Han Fong, why didn't you call me when you went out?" She even took the initiative to wrap her arm around Han Fong's and looked at Kim Chin-yen, asking, "Who is this, your friend?" Instantly, Han Fong felt his arm lighten as Kim Chin-yen quickly grabbed the boxes back and said, "You two take your time talking. I won't interrupt you anymore. I'll take the stuff over there myself. Thank you." Before Han Fong could say anything, Li Huina chimed in, "Oh, okay." When Kim Tring-yi had already left, Han Fong finally spoke up. "Huina, why are you here?" Li Huina smiled and replied, "I came down to collect supplies. You didn't contact me, and I was worried something happened to you." Han Fong pretended to scratch his head and laughed. "Oh, I was just about to send a message to Huina." Li Huina lightly huffed and said, "You're such a liar. I just saw you laughing and talking with that girl." Then she broke into a bright smile and asked, "By the way, does your family still have extra food?" "My house is almost out. Can you spare me a little?" Han Fong smiled slyly and said, "My food supply isn't much either, but I can share a bit with you. Just a few days ago I texted you and you still haven't replied. How about you come stay at my place for a few days? He even wrapped an arm around Li Huina, who was a bit startled by Han Peng's unusual attitude and actions. She quickly pushed him away and forced a smile, saying, "I didn't understand what you meant. You want me to come over to keep you company? I can just go online to find you." Han Peng turned away and yawned, saying, "Looks like if you won't agree, I'll just head back." Seeing this, Li Huina hurriedly grabbed the sleeve of Han Peng and called out, "Wait a minute!" Han Peng stopped and turned to look at her. Li Huina lowered her head and said, "I feel like you've changed lately. I know you take relationships seriously. You don't want others to think that you're with me just because I have money. So can you give me a little more time?" Han Peng appeared touched and spoke while inside he was sneering. "Just because I've been fooled once doesn't mean I'll really believe it now. I really want to tear off that ugly fake face of yours. If I didn't want to find the man behind you, why would I need to search for him myself? I'll just follow the plan from before my rebirth to bring that man back here again." Thinking this, Han Peng smiled and said, "I was just joking with you." Li Huina looked at Han Peng in surprise and softly exclaimed, "Hey!" Han Peng continued to smile. "I'll wait for your answer to my question. Tomorrow I'll bring the food to you." Li Huina joyfully said, "Really, Han Peng, you're the best." Then she turned to leave, saying, "I'll head back now. If you need anything, just message me." Han Peng waved his hand. "Yeah, be careful not to catch a cold." As Li Huina turned around, she wore a disdainful smile, unaware that behind her Han Peng wore a similar contemptuous smile. 2 days later, in Han Peng's room, his phone suddenly vibrated with a notification of a new message. "Li Huina, what are you doing? 2 days ago you said you wanted to bring me some supplies. When will you deliver them? Why haven't you replied?" She skimmed through the message, but Han Peng didn't care. He continued to enjoy the steaming bowl of meat noodles in front of him, feeling blissful. So delicious, especially in this weather. It's perfect for eating hot steaming food like this. Time went on, the weather grew colder, and everyone was struggling over essential supplies while Han Peng relaxed in his room with a big heater. Enjoying the hot food, the experiments he had conducted over the past few days confirmed 2 things. First, various meats wouldn't grow infinitely. On Monday, all types of meat similar to beans can be used endlessly. Previously, every time a sprout was created, he would hold on to half of the beans to continue turning them into sprouts, while the other half was used for eating. The same principle applies here. Han Peng conducted experiments on various meats under the influence of 2 types of light. Half a piece of meat with a little bit of beans would yield nearly a whole piece of beef. He brought that new piece of beef back. Once again, using the same principle, the results remained unchanged. After that, you conducted multiple experiments, and the final results matched what you had predicted earlier. From now on, there's no need to worry about not having enough to eat. Happily, Han Peng continued to finish the hot meal in front of him. After a satisfying meal, he poured himself a glass of red wine and headed to the sofa to watch TV. Good morning, dear viewers. Today is August 2nd, the 19th day of Snow Talent. I am currently at Potahiti Island in the Maldives, 78 kilometers from the equator. The average temperature here is minus 42 degrees, and the entire island has almost been swallowed by ice and snow. The sea can visibly freeze at a rapid pace. According to researchers, the thickest layer of ice has reached 55 centimeters. It is known that countries near the equator are affected by natural disasters. This time, compared to other places, it's not much different. Han Peng thought to himself that the actual situation was far worse than what was reported on television. Suddenly, a loud explosion accompanied by a minor earthquake occurred, startling Han Peng. He hurried to the window and looked outside, seeing a mushroom cloud in the distance. Han Peng thought to himself, this is already the 7th explosion. What exactly is happening outside? Then Han Peng saw many military helicopters flying across the sky. He took out his phone to check the situation in the chat group. He realized that the situation outside was also leading to a crisis for the residents here. Residents in the parking garage were trading various necessary items and food, but many took advantage of the situation to exploit others, leading to numerous conflicts. Additionally, Han Peng saw in the chat group that some residents were struggling and lining up in the parking garage to receive supplies. After a while, Han Peng dressed in multiple layers of warm clothing and went down to the parking garage. Sneezing, Han Peng thought to himself, it's just too cold down here. If it weren't for gathering some information, I wouldn't bother coming down here. I remember before my rebirth there was a riot in the neighborhood, but at that time I didn't know the specific cause of the riot this time. First, I need to understand the situation to minimize risks later. With that thought, Han Peng went to the supply reception area. When he arrived, he saw many people already lined up and thought, There are indeed many struggling households. At this moment, there was an argument at the front of the line. A man who had just received supplies shouted, "I initially donated several boxes of supplies. Now you want to give me some food like this?" Opposite him, a man named Tuang Hok Hu, sitting at the table, smiled and said, "Everyone is sharing equally." The man refused, and he shouted back, "Return the supplies I donated earlier to me." Tuang Hok Hu replied, "I'm sorry, but the supplies cannot be returned to you. Currently, during this ongoing disaster, I hope you can consider the bigger picture. Once this disaster is over, I will reach into my pocket to compensate you. Is that acceptable?" The man shouted, "Who knows how long this snow disaster will last? I just want the supplies I donated before." The people waiting in line behind grew impatient after waiting for so long and shouted, "Is it too much to ask? You said you would compensate him. You should give him some face. I see you just want to get a bit more supplies. Take the food and get lost. Everyone is waiting to eat here. Don't just stand there and delay his business, okay? You've already donated and still want to take it back. Do you have any shame left?" That's right, everyone in the committee is having a hard time, too. "You fat bastard, just get lost." Standing at the end of the line, Han Pong smirked and thought to himself that the current situation couldn't allow them to take the supplies back. But it was truly shameless to put oneself on such a high moral pedestal. And forcing others to contribute more food suddenly, someone next to him spoke up, saying he had never seen anyone so shameless. Han Fong turned in surprise to see it was Li Tungia. He raised his hand to greet him. "Oh, it's you, little brother." Han Fong smiled and said, "What a coincidence. Long time no see, how have you been lately?" Li Tungia chuckled and replied, "Still doing well, just feeling a bit weak and confused." Han Pong was somewhat at a loss for words, looking at him and saying, "You say you're doing well yet?" Suddenly, Li Tungia's stomach growled a few times and his face fell as he rubbed his belly and softly said, "Lately, I've only been drinking tap water to stave off hunger. It's quite a struggle." Han Pong was surprised and asked, "You don't have any supplies at all?" Li Tungia replied, "Yeah, I thought about helping the neighbors, so I donated a large amount of supplies to the committee. As a result, the food at home is all gone and the snowstorm is still ongoing. And the committee only distributed a little food. I should have known better. I would have saved more supplies for myself." Looking at Li Tungia, Han Fong pondered for a moment, then smiled and put his arm around his shoulder, saying, "Can you help me out a bit?" Then he whispered something in Li Tungia's ear, who nodded repeatedly. In the end, he looked at Han Fong in astonishment and asked, "Oh, is it really that simple?" "Just give me 4 packs of instant noodles and 2 sausages," Han Pong replied. "But don't complain about it being too little. I don't have much left to stock up on." Han Pong thought Li Tungia would complain about the small amount, but he didn't. He was so moved that he almost cried, saying, "Little brother, you're just finding an excuse to give me food. I will never forget this kindness of yours." Han Pong helplessly smiled and said, "We're brothers, so no need to be polite." Li Tungia suddenly patted Han Pong hard on the shoulder. "Rest assured, little brother, this small matter is nothing to worry about." Han Pong smiled and said, "Thank you. I'll come by your house to pick up the food later." Li Tungia turned and said, "All right, I'll go get the supplies first." Smiling, he gave a thumbs up to Li Tungia, thinking to himself, "These packs of instant noodles and sausages have really helped me out. Now I won't have to gather intelligence myself anymore. Although I feel a bit guilty who can just lie on the sofa eating good food and playing games." With a cheerful mood, Han Pong was about to head back to his room to enjoy a warm life when he suddenly heard someone shout his name. Then a hand slapped straight across his face. Li Huina, with an angry expression, looked at him and said, "You've disappointed me so much." Li Huina questioned, "Why do you always ignore my messages?" Her voice was loud enough for those nearby to hear, and they threw curious glances at Han Pong. He was quite surprised by the slap. He touched the spot where he was slapped, thinking to himself, "I just got slapped by her, and I hadn't even settled the score from the last time. Now she slaps me for no reason. Does she think I'm easy to bully?" Seeing Han Fong not responding, Li Huina raised her voice again, questioning, "Hey, are you mute or something? Did you hear what I said?" Han Fong collected his thoughts, took a deep breath to calm down, then looked at her and said, "Sorry, Huina, here's the situation." Han Fong collected his thoughts, took a deep breath to regain his composure, and looked at her, saying, "I'm sorry, Huina, here's what happened." A moment later, Li Huina exclaimed that something was stolen, and Han Feng replied, "Yeah, I left the supplies at the door and went to get the keys. When I came back, they were gone." Li Huina asked, "Did you look for them?" Han Feng replied, "I searched, but there wasn't a single clue." Li Huina worriedly asked, "Do you still have any supplies left?" Han Feng responded, "Not much. I only eat once a day, so I can last a few more days." Hearing this, Li Huina greedily said, "That's great. If you eat once every 2 days, can't you share half with me? Then we can get through this disaster together." Han Feng thought to himself, how shameless she can actually say something like that. It's true. In her eyes, he was just a tool to be used when needed. On the surface, Han Feng smiled and said, "All right. After all, I've already agreed with Huina. Let's each take half." Li Huina joyfully exclaimed, "Really, thank you so much." Han Feng said, "Can you help me bring it down now?" Han Feng replied, "Let's do it tonight. I'll clean up and text you when I'm done. You wait for my news, okay? I'll head back first. You should come back soon, too. Don't catch a cold." Saying that, she turned and left. Han Feng waved goodbye, saying, "Okay, wait for me tonight." That night, Li Huina sat shivering in front of the elevator in the lobby of Han Feng's apartment, waiting while continuously texting him. At 8:15 p.m. Han Feng, can I come over now? At 10:40 p.m. Are you there? Have you prepared my supplies? 9:05 p.m. Han Feng, I'm at your floor now. 9:34 p.m. Han Feng, aren't you coming down? I'm so cold. After waiting for an hour without seeing Han Feng and with no response to her texts, Li Huina angrily cursed Han Feng, wondering what that guy was doing. With no replies to her messages and no answer on the phone, she thought, he's not going to stand me up, is he? Looking up at the elevator that had stopped working, Li Huina hesitated for a moment before deciding to take the stairs up to where Han Feng was. She had already waited so long. She didn't want to go back empty-handed, but Han Feng's room was on a high floor, so she quickly became exhausted. Yet she had no other choice. Li Huina could only persist in climbing up, cursing Han Feng in her heart. Damn it, if it weren't for the supplies, I wouldn't have come looking for him. I'm exhausted. When she reached the 16th floor, Li Huina let out a sigh and thought to herself, finally, I'm almost there. At that moment, the lights in the stairwell suddenly went out, and Li Huina jumped, murmuring, "The emergency lights are out too." Then she heard a strange noise from above. Someone had just spoken. Li Huina looked up and froze as a black bag came tumbling down right onto her head. A few minutes later, the lights came back on, and Li Huina was covered in flour, staring at the person in front of her, shouting, Han Feng, Han Feng. He was carrying 2 black bags, just like the one that had hit her. "Sorry, Huina, I dozed off. When I saw your message, I rushed down here with the supplies. I didn't expect the lights to go out suddenly, and I bumped into the railing, losing grip on the flour bag." Li Huina angrily called him a pig. She couldn't even handle this little task and was trying to get some stuff out of her hair, muttering that it was disgusting. Han Feng, feeling smug, thought to himself that this was what he had prepared for her. "Here you can take the black bag I'm carrying, Li Huina. This is the leftover supplies." Li Huina took it and opened the bag to see a messy jumble of items inside. She couldn't help but ask, "These things aren't spoiled, are they?" "They look like trash." Han Feng laughed and explained, "This is what I saved after eating just a little leftover." Li Huina scoffed, "How can you eat something that dirty? If you think it's so bad, just give it back to me." As he spoke, Han Feng reached out to take the bag back, but Li Huina quickly hugged it to herself, looking at him warily, and said, "Who said I didn't need it?" Seeing Li Huina's disheveled appearance and pitiful expression at that moment, Han Feng couldn't help but mock her silently, thinking, this is the goddess I once desperately pursued. Li Huina, not noticing Han Feng's expression, took out a half-eaten apple from the bag, smiled softly, and said, "It's a bit brown on the outside, but it should still be good inside. And just cut a little and it'll be fine to eat." Then she snatched the remaining black bag from Han Feng's hand and said, "This flour is for me too." She opened it, looked pleased, and said, "Great, there's still half left." After that, she took both bags and went down the stairs without saying a word to Han Feng. Her attention was completely on the 2 bags in her hands, while Han Feng stood on the stairs smirking and thinking, this trash is enough to give you a stomachache for days. With this weather, you can't even take a shower. Just hang that flour up. Just as you turned to leave, your expression suddenly hardened, but your feet kept moving toward the hallway, just as you stepped off the stairs. A figure followed you in from the stairwell into the hallway. Han Feng was already waiting there, grabbing the collar of the person and pushing them down to the ground. "What do you want?" He raised his other hand ready to punch, but then he hesitated, looking down at the person he was holding down. "Oh, a little girl," Han Feng said, looking at the bespectacled girl and asking, "Are you following me? What do you want?" The bespectacled girl just stared at him without saying anything. Seeing this, Han Pong suddenly smiled darkly and threatened, "If you don't speak, I'll just take your clothes off." The bespectacled girl still didn't say anything, and Han Pong was at a loss. He had to let go of her collar and stood up, saying, "It's fine this time, just go home quickly and don't mess around anymore." After saying that, Han Pong intended to return to his room when he suddenly felt the sleeve of his shirt being grabbed by the bespectacled girl. He turned back to look at her and asked, "What do you want?" "Don't look at me like that or I'll leave." The bespectacled girl suddenly pointed in a direction. Han Pong asked, "Do you want me to follow you?" The bespectacled girl softly replied, "Uh-huh." Soon after, Han Pong was led by her to her room. As soon as he entered, he was surprised to see a pile of boxes stacked all around the room. He exclaimed, "Wow, is all this stuff prepared by you?" The girl with glasses spoke up, Han Pong, are you serious? I already knew there would be a snow disaster." The girl with glasses took off her jacket, looked at Han Pong, and replied, Let's analyze the results of the Ice Age." Then, she pointed to her message history in the group chat of the apartment complex, saying it had already been mentioned in the group. Han Pong looked at the message and suddenly realized, pointing at her, "So you're the one from the outskirts, that's impressive. But why are you bringing me to your house and saying all this?" The girl with glasses pointed in a direction. Han Pong looked over and saw several surveillance screens showing footage of him stockpiling supplies. "In my room, you've been monitoring me this whole time." As he asked, Han Pong turned back to look at the girl with glasses. She innocently continued to take off her outer long shirt, wearing only a nightgown, and replied, Han Pong was taken aback, staring at the girl with glasses, forgetting to question her. Then he reacted, his face turning red, as he hurriedly said, "Hey, don't suddenly take off your clothes." The girl with glasses spoke up. Hot Han Pong exclaimed, "No, I didn't mean that." Seeing she had no intention of stopping her actions, he immediately shouted, "Don't take off any more! Put your clothes back on!" After a moment, the girl with glasses wore a comfortable outfit for home. Sitting on the sofa, her fingers typed rapidly on the keyboard while her eyes were glued to the laptop screen. Han Pong glanced at her and said, "So you were suspicious and monitoring me because you saw me stockpiling supplies before the snow fell." The girl with glasses replied, Han Pong said the main purpose of monitoring him was to confirm whether they could cooperate or not. The girl with glasses replied, Han Pong asked, "When you say cooperate, do you mean—" Just then, she suddenly reached over to the sofa's armrest and pulled out a machine, placing it in front of Han Pong, asking him to teach her. "How to use the generator." Han Pong reacted, trying to operate the generator once, and said, "Like this, it's good." "Got it." The girl with glasses replied, Han Pong looked at her and asked, "So there's nothing else right?" The girl with glasses looked at him for a few seconds, then pointed in a direction. Han Pong followed her gaze. He looked over and saw a water heater, so he went with the girl with glasses to guide her on how to adjust it, saying, "This way you'll have hot water, but remember to turn it off after using." The girl with glasses replied, That's just the beginning." It seemed she didn't know anything, so Han Pong had to guide her through everything, moving to the refrigerator. "Raw meat should be kept in the freezer, and you have to take it out of the packaging to store it. It's too messy like this. Don't just stand there watching, help me out." When they got to the kitchen, he emphasized safety with the gas, saying, "Watch closely, I'm doing this." He even had to show her how to use the stove and rice cooker. "Once the fire is enough, it'll get bigger and the meal will taste better. Check if the rice is done. When the green light is on, it's ready." Finally, a table with 3 savory dishes appeared. Han Pong said, "All right, let's eat." The girl with glasses said nothing and began to pick up her chopsticks. Han Pong, feeling a bit helpless, slammed the table and exclaimed, "I feel like I'm about to become a full-time babysitter. My rational abilities are just too weak." The girl with glasses looked at Han Pong in confusion. Han Pong smiled awkwardly and said, "I'm just joking." Then he also started to pick up his chopsticks, sighing internally, "I'm so tired." After that, he picked up his chopsticks and sighed inwardly, saying, "I'm so tired." After eating for a while, Han Pong turned to the girl with glasses and said to speak first. After finishing the meal, he said he would head back here. "It's just that you noticed she had fallen asleep at some point. After finishing the rice, she could just sleep right away, huh?" Han Pong smiled wryly and had no choice but to lay her down on the sofa and carefully cover her with a blanket before leaving the girl with glasses, thinking to himself that it felt like he was babysitting. The next day, Han Pong was sleeping when he was abruptly awakened by a knocking at the door so early. what could be going on. Lam Bam complained as Han Pong went out to open the door and saw the girl with glasses along with several boxes of supplies stacked in front of his room. The girl with glasses spoke up, saying these were gifts for him. Han Pong replied, "Oh, that's too kind of you." Looking at the pile of boxes stacked higher than half his body, Han Pong was surprised and thought to himself, so much. Noticing the girl with glasses still standing there looking at him, Han Pong asked if she had anything else. The girl with glasses pointed at the generator beside her and asked if he could teach her once more. Han Pong replied, "Sure." Days passed like that, and after several days of interaction, Han Pong confirmed that the girl living on the same floor as him was a genuine fool lacking a lot of basic knowledge. She seemed very eager to learn everyday knowledge, pulling him over to her house to teach her. Currently, Han Pong was sitting at the dining table in the girl with glasses' house. After tasting some of the dishes she made herself after a few days of learning, Han Pong reluctantly said, "Well, your cooking skills have improved a bit." However, no matter what these dishes were, many people were still fighting over them, and if it were peacetime, even dogs wouldn't want to eat them. Remembering something, Han Pong looked at the girl with glasses and asked, "By the way, I haven't asked your name." The girl with glasses replied, "Tavuong Chan Nan." Han Pong lowered his head and continued eating, saying it was as if he hadn't asked. Meanwhile, down in the parking lot, people were arguing over food. "What's with this trash? Why do you get to take the supplies? Those supplies are mine. Who can prove that it's yours?" Thus, a chaotic battle over food broke out, only stopping when Tuang Hak-hu turned on the loudspeaker, deliberately creating a deafening noise to calm the overly excited crowd. "Have you all had enough fighting?" He reached out to support a man whose face was swollen and said sternly, "Is it funny to fight over these leftover supplies until heads roll and blood flows? You still dare to say that you were the one who proposed donating supplies from my house for days now. I only received a pack of instant noodles. If I didn't, I'd surely starve." In response to the rebuttal, Tuang Hak-hu calmly replied, "Let me summarize. Because the supplies are insufficient for food, the donated supplies have also run out, so we must fight for the remaining supplies." "That's true. So I just said it's really funny that you're starving. Think carefully about who caused this situation." "You one person, let me help you remember." Tuang Hak-hu picked up a piece of bread and began to manipulate it. "This bread originally cost only a few coins, but those with enough supplies raised the price to several tens, even hundreds, to squeeze you dry, and they even divided the bread into 5 or even 10 pieces for bidding. In the end, they successfully profited from the disaster, while you not only spent all your money on food, but also fought among yourselves over the remaining supplies. Isn't that funny? The ones hoarding supplies and not donating are them. The ones intentionally raising prices are also them. And in the end, it's us who suffer from hunger. Is this fair? Right now, what we need to do most is unite and stand up to reclaim what belongs to us, isn't it?" Sure enough, the suggestion from Tuang Hak-hu immediately brainwashed everyone. The starving crowd shifted their criticism towards those hoarding supplies. "It's so unfair. We need to get our share back." "Exactly, we just want to reclaim what belongs to us." Seeing their overly excited reactions, Li Tungia knew something big was about to happen, so he secretly messaged Han Pong, "Little brother, something big is going down. Those people are about to raid the supplies." Han Pong, who was sitting quietly, received the message and quickly asked, "Who are they?" "It's that guy they call Tuang. He's inciting the homeowners to raid the supplies from others. They're breaking down doors and are armed. If you can avoid them, do so. Don't confront them directly." "Got it. You be careful, too." Han Pong replied and then began to check the house thoroughly. He couldn't help but feel anxious. He never expected things would escalate to this level. Although he had prepared 2 guns to deal with a crisis if it turned into an organized action like this. Once his supplies were exposed facing those overly excited neighbors, he feared he would be torn apart and left with nothing. Anyway, he had to prepare everything first. Just then, as Han Pong was reinforcing the doors, the lights suddenly went out and the sounds of complaints began to echo around. "The power's out. Contact the management of the apartment quickly. Look, the building across the street is out of power too. We can't reach them anymore. It seems like the signal is gone." Han Pong lifted the curtain to observe, then diligently went to refuel the generator, thinking to himself, with the snowstorm and the overload from heating, it's only a matter of time before the power goes out. Moreover, the heavy snowfall and low temperatures outside have made repairing the equipment impossible, which means this power outage and loss of life could last forever. If the homeowners realize that the power won't come back, the fear could escalate the situation into violence. Things could get really serious then. That would truly be hell. Half an hour earlier, Li Huina was slurping a hot bowl of noodles. I told the group outright that I would buy all the supplies at 50 times the market price. Those poor folks immediately fell silent. I only spent over 500,000. I said straight out in the group that I would buy all the supplies at 50 times the market price, and those poor guys immediately shut up. I only spent over 500,000. I still have some supplies to auction off, and those poor folks will fight over them. I think that's a fair way to make a little money, right? As he spoke, the blonde man sitting across from Huina reached out to wipe the noodle sauce from her mouth. Huina didn't resist and even took his hand. She smiled and replied, and her reaction made the blonde man secretly pleased. As long as there are supplies in the future, this woman will be in the palm of my hand. Just then, loud footsteps echoed from outside. What's going on this floor? I thought everyone had someone at home. You guys open this room first and bring the tools over quickly. Why is it so noisy at this late hour? With suspicion, the blonde man went out and pressed his ear against the door to listen. This must be the one, right? I'm pretty sure I saw this guy buy up all the supplies from store number 10. I remember now it's definitely this guy. Back then, he was the first one in the group to raise the prices. No more delays, kicked the door down on the other side. Just as he finished speaking, the blonde guy pressed against the door was suddenly thrown back by the force from outside, and very quickly after that, a group of people armed with sticks burst in. Meanwhile, our main character, Han Fong, was sitting there fiddling with the electric trap system at the entrance. Strange, why is there still no power? Just as he finished speaking, the wires exploded. Why is this so difficult? I wish I had a signal. Just then, there was the sudden knock at the door. Han Fong alert peeked outside. This height, that messy hair. Han Fong sighed in frustration and called out, "What now?" The little girl with glasses looked up at the door and replied, "I need help. It's really annoying to come find me when I'm busy." Han Fong was about to open the door for the girl when he suddenly remembered that in his past life, he had been ambushed because he trusted someone, so he pulled his hand back. I heard that some homeowners are starting to break down doors. They're stealing supplies, so you should hurry home. I won't open the door for you. The girl continued to knock, but when she saw Han Fong wasn't responding, she sat huddled in one spot, patiently waiting for him. Just then, from the stairs, voices started saying, "Hurry up or someone else will steal it first." On the 18th floor, there are a few households with people in them. Just go into each house. A few seconds later, the group climbed up to Han Fong's apartment, but they didn't see the girl anywhere because he had managed to pull her inside just in time. Before those people could discover them, it seemed that this floor was still clear. The 2 other apartments would belong to us, the man said to the other 2, and then stepped up to the front door. Han Fong handed him a crowbar. The man whispered to his accomplices and knocked on the door. "Hello, we're here to deliver supplies." "Hello, is anyone home?" Seeing that there was still no response, they started trying to break down the door, but it was no use. This door was so sturdy that even the doorknob wouldn't budge. "Hey, why don't we try prying open the door next door first? Mark this house." The 2 others exchanged glances and then left. Han Fong finally breathed a sigh of relief. They finally left. Luckily, he had reinforced the door and the doorknob well. He chuckled as he remembered the scene when he asked for an extra 5 centimeters of steel for the door. Even the doorknob and the worker had awkwardly asked him, "Are you hiding from debt?" At that moment, he suddenly realized he was still covering the girl's mouth to prevent her from making noise, so he quickly let go and awkwardly said, "Are you okay?" "I was afraid they would discover there were people inside," the girl mumbled, bowing her head to thank him. After a moment, when there was no more noise outside, Han Fong said, "It seems like they really have left. But wait for me to finish this. Next time they dare to kick down my door, I'll electrocute them to death," he said. "Wait until I finish this. If you dare kick my door again, I'll electrocute you all. That's what I said." Han Fong continued his work installing the electrical system. "What's this?" the Dark Prince asked curiously. "A method of defense using electricity. But honestly, you probably wouldn't understand. I can barely grasp why this electric device is so complicated." The Dark Prince observed for a while before speaking. "This anti-theft system will use electricity, and do you know about voltage, Han?" Fong looked at the Dark Prince in surprise. "After cutting off the power, just wrap the bare wires around the doorknob and do the insulation part well. Then connect the ground wire from the distribution box to the doorknob and finally turn on the power." Following the Dark Prince's instructions, Han Fong successfully activated the anti-theft system. It really worked. "How did you know about all this?" The Dark Prince has the ability to see through all truths of the world. Hearing this, Han Fong sighed. "Let's pretend I didn't ask." If you need my help, just say it quickly. I'm very busy. As he spoke, Han Pong was tidying up the tangled wires on the floor. The Dark Prince pulled out some personal items from her pocket and replied, "The Dark Prince will reside here. The Dark Lord has the ability to see through all the truths of the world." When Han Pong heard this, he sighed. "Let's say I didn't ask what you want me to help with, so just say it quickly." Han Pong casually replied, but quickly turned around in shock, looking at the Dark Prince. "What are you joking about? You absolutely cannot go home right now." Han Pong walked towards the Dark Prince. Unfortunately, his foot got caught in the wires, causing him to fall and hit his hand on the coffee table. "Ouch, that hurts." "Oh, it doesn't hurt anymore." At that moment, Han Pong noticed that the coffee table had become soft like fabric and his hands were glowing purple. Could it be that this purple light has made the coffee table like this? Why is the toolbox also... Han Pong lifted the hammer and it had become soft too, so this purple light can make objects soft. At that moment, Han Pong looked up and saw the Dark Prince staring at him intently. "Oh no, I forgot there was someone else in the house." The girl, the Dark Prince, squinted at him for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "Are you also a messenger chosen by the Dark Prince?" Han Pong was a bit startled when she asked that. But to cover up the reason, he could only admit that he was also a subordinate of the Dark Prince, which is why strange phenomena like this often occur. Upon hearing this, the girl gestured for him to stop. Her eyes instantly brightened with joy as she said, "Since we're both messengers, let's help each other out. We can share the room and use it together." Han Pong sighed helplessly. "A girl like you wants to share with me." Just as he was about to finish speaking, the sound of the door closing rang out and he fell silent. He turned to look at the door. "You're blaming me? You haven't even agreed, and you think this is the Dark Prince's lair?" Han Pong sighed helplessly. "A girl like you wants to be with me." But before he could finish, the sound of the door closing echoed, and he fell silent, turning to look at the door. "You're blaming me when I haven't even agreed yet. Do you think this is the Dark Lord's den?" It's useless to say anything when you can't see the shadow of a person. You shake your head in frustration, trying to focus on your own abilities. What was that purple light on your hand just now? It can actually turn objects from hard to soft. Han Pong thinks for a moment, then clicks his tongue, realizing that the purple light he has is something special. There are only two types. It's just that you haven't discovered them yet. The purple light appeared after you were knocked down by the electric wire and hit the coffee table. Thinking back, it felt a bit strange at that moment. Just then, you noticed that purple light has returned. So just recalling the dangerous situation from before made the purple light appear again. Could it be that this purple light also affects the wires? After thinking for a moment, he stood up and went into the kitchen holding a large knife. He wanted to test it on something else, and in an instant, the knife in his hand was enveloped by the purple light. He didn't expect it to work on steel as well. The knife quickly softened like fruit jelly. After that, Han Pong tried many different items and finally concluded that the longer this purple light was used, the more severely the item would soften. Besides that, there were no other changes. This effect was like chicken tendons. He pondered, wondering if he could try something else. For example, what if he combined the two types of blue and purple light? Thinking of this, he quickly summoned both types of light and combined them into one. Then he took the knife from earlier and wrapped it completely in the light. When the light faded, the item inside gradually revealed itself. The knife had returned to its original shape, only it was shinier than usual. Han Pong frowned deep in thought for a moment. Then he applied force to the object on the table and finally realized that the mixed light could change the ductility of the item and its hardness was also somewhat exaggerated. With this thought, he suddenly came up with an idea. At the same time, in the dark corner of the staircase, two deep voices echoed. One person asked, "Brother, you're not planning to turn in the supplies you stole, are you?" The other person snorted coldly. "Only a fool would turn them in. I can barely feed myself, and after turning them in, I'd have to share with women and the elderly." "Why should we?" The person behind nodded in agreement. "We must keep this a secret. If anyone else finds out, we're done for." Just then, the person in front saw something and exclaimed, "Hey, look behind you." The other person turned around in shock and saw the wall behind them moving. Suddenly, a strange face appeared on the wall, continuously shifting back and forth, looking somewhat frightening. In an instant, the face leaned close to one of the guys standing nearby. As if that wasn't enough, it also revealed two hands reaching forward. The two men were so scared they trembled and muttered, "It's a ghost," before turning to run away. The strange face suddenly shook and a voice echoed, "I can't breathe!" It turned out that the one creating this phenomenon was Han Pong. He had used his ability on his wall, transforming it from hard to soft. He finally breathed a sigh of relief using all his power on the wall. "I'm so tired," he said, withdrawing his ability from the wall. With a loud bang, the wall quickly returned to its original shape. Han Pong couldn't help but let out a weak sigh, feeling utterly exhausted. But he didn't stop there. He went to grab a large hammer, wanting to test the results of hardening the wall. Taking a deep breath, he finally began. He swung the hammer fiercely against the wall in front of him. Outside, the snow was falling heavier and heavier, but inside his house, Han Pong was drenched in sweat. His hands couldn't help but tremble. The wall in front of him showed no signs of damage after many strikes with the hammer. He couldn't help but feel it was too exaggerated, yet not a single chip fell off. Meanwhile, below at the supply submission point, a person returned with a small bag and placed it on the table. He stammered, "Most of the households are out of food. I only collected this little." Just as he finished speaking, a hand was placed on his shoulder and he was pushed down onto the table. The person who did this was Tai Vo, who pressed him down forcefully and questioned him fiercely. "Where have you hidden the bags of food you stole?" The guy refused to confess, gritting his teeth and saying, "Who's hiding anything? Everything I managed to grab is right here." But Tai Vo doesn't believe him, angrily saying to stop pretending. "Clearly, I saw you take 3 big bags, yet you only handed over 1, and that guy still isn't accepting it." He shouted back, insisting that I must have seen it wrong. "I swear I've handed over everything." Hearing this, Tai Vo snorted coldly, still refusing to speak right. "Looks like a fight is the only way to settle this." Just as he finished speaking, he was ready to strike, but before he could do anything, a hand grabbed him, startling him as he turned to see who it was. He frowned, thinking, "Mr. Tuang, you're back." The newcomer was his friend, who quietly advised him to let the guy go first. Let's talk this out," Tai Vo said indignantly. "But this guy has hidden everyone's food." His friend nodded slightly seriously, saying, "I know about this, just leave it to me, okay?" Tai Vo was a bit surprised, but then nodded in agreement. He released the guy, snorting, "I'll let you off this time because Mr. Tuang is here." At that moment, his friend approached the man. He reached out to help him up, concerned, asking, "Are you okay?" The man trembled speechless while his friend smiled sincerely, and the man truly believed him. The man quickly submitted the supplies he had stolen, apologizing. "I'm sorry, Mr. Tuang. My family has 5 mouths to feed, and the rations are really not enough. So He hadn't finished speaking when his friend handed him a box of food, saying, "Here, this is my portion for today." The man suspiciously asked, "Mr. Tuang, what are you trying to do?" His friend pretended to be magnanimous, saying, "Rules are rules. Everything collected must be submitted and then divided based on the fixed number of people. But I can understand your predicament. Just take it." The man's eyes immediately filled with gratitude as he trembled, taking the box of food and softly saying thank you. He also mentioned that if there was anything in the future, he could just let him know. His friend nodded slightly, replying, "If you have any difficulties, just tell me." After that, he carried 2 large bags of supplies back to everyone, saying, "Everyone take your supplies and head home quickly." The group obeyed, quickly leaving. Tai Vo and his brother approached him suspiciously, asking, "How did you manage to get him to hand over the hidden food? Moreover, why did you give him your own portion?" With a light chuckle, his friend casually replied, "Honestly, I didn't do much. I just explained a little reasoning to him." Throughout history, there have been many conflicts and riots due to conflicting interests among different classes, but their nature is defined as collective behavior. As long as society isn't caught in the act, participants won't be punished. Therefore, his friend told the old king that if he broke the collective rules, he wouldn't be tolerated. He was just a petty thief, and it wasn't just about whether the disaster would end or if he would be punished by the law. Before that happened, the old king would also have to face the revenge of those who were robbed. In the distance, Lao Lu was smoking while observing them, secretly reflecting on the nature of such collective riots. There is usually someone leading the action. In chaotic times, heroes emerge, but whether they are true heroes or just people exploiting others for their own gain is uncertain. This kid isn't simple at all. Meanwhile, at Han Pong's house, he was continuously testing the sturdiness of the things he had just reinforced in the house. "You hit so hard that your hands and feet are trembling, but they're barely holding up." Han Feng nodded in satisfaction. "This room has been reinforced and is finally complete. The strength has also been confirmed." Just then, a knock on the door suddenly echoed. Han Feng flinched. Could it be the neighbors coming to steal supplies again? He hurriedly ran outside. Peeking through the peephole to see who it was, he found that annoying Hui Na standing there trembling as she said, "Han Feng, it's me. I've thought it through these past few days. I can't let you down for how you feel about me." Han Feng frowned slightly as he looked at her outside. The scene from his past life quickly flashed in his mind. Her words were just like that day. Also outside the door, besides her, there was that man. Han Feng thought about it and immediately lifted his foot to head towards the coffee table. He grabbed the gun he had placed there. Finally, it was time to shoot this couple dead for revenge. However, he suddenly reconsidered. Now, with the power cut, the enemy was in the dark while he was in the light. If he made a lethal strike right away, he might end up getting killed in return. Moreover, he wasn't sure how this electric shock would actually work. He forced himself to calm down. After all, he had waited for this moment. He needed to be clear-headed. The biggest threat to him right now wasn't that Hu Na. It was the mysterious man hiding in the shadows, so he needed to go outside right now to locate him before delivering a fatal blow. But how could he determine his position from inside the house? Han Feng scanned around, thinking for a moment before remembering that he was definitely hiding in the corner behind his door. He felt along the wall and finally stopped at a corner. Perhaps it was this position. Although it would take a little time, it was doable. With that thought, he placed his hand on the wall, emitting a faint purple light. Outside, Huana kept saying, "Are you there? Please open the door for me, that man is with me." Impatiently, she asked if this kid was worth their trouble to steal from. Huana nodded slightly, replying, "He still has supplies left. I remember that just before the disaster, he bought another truckload of goods." Hearing this, the man became cheerful. "Then this guy is enough for us to eat for a few days." Only he didn't notice that behind him a strange phenomenon occurred. The wall suddenly softened and moved closer to him. The man seemed to sense something. He looked at Huana and asked, "Did you hear any noise?" She frowned in suspicion. "What noise?" He stammered, "I think I heard something behind us." He hurriedly glanced back, but before he could see anything, he took a punch. He was directly knocked away, startling Huana. She hurried over to ask, "What's wrong with you? Don't scare me like that?" But he didn't answer. At that moment, she saw Han Feng's door slightly ajar and rushed over to look, finding Han Feng appearing. He was just holding a fire extinguisher in his hand. Huana looked at him in confusion, not knowing what he was planning to do. Before she could ask, he sprayed her in the face with the extinguisher. This made her scream in fear. Huana raised her hands to cover her eyes, but the gas from the extinguisher made her eyes sting so much she couldn't open them. She trembled and begged, "Please don't spray anymore." With no other choice, she had to step back. She couldn't help but cough twice. At that moment, she seemed to see something. Her eyes widened in horror as she saw the man trembling on the ground, mumbling for help. She hesitated a bit. I don't know whether to pull him up or not. But at this moment, suddenly a hand appeared from the smoke, and Huana was grabbed by that hand, which of course belonged to Han Feng, who forcefully pushed her away. She was terrified and quickly turned to run. Han Feng watched her retreating figure with a cold, disdainful look, thinking, how could she run so fast? At this moment, that bastard had also managed to sit up, but Han Feng wouldn't give him that chance. He coldly said, "Who told you to get up?" Immediately, he raised his foot, wanting to kick him, but he managed to block it, gritting his teeth and saying, "Do you know who my dad is? If you dare to touch me, then I will." But before he could finish, Han Feng struck him with a kick to the face, coldly saying, "What if I do?" He didn't care who his father was. He just kept hitting him. The guy was pinned to the ground, frightened, saying, "Bro, wait a minute," his voice trembling as he asked, "We have no grudges against each other. Why are you?" But Han Feng continued to attack. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and Han Feng coldly said, "I still want to ask you." Then he kept punching him, relentlessly questioning him about why he tried to kill him until his hands were covered in blood before he finally stopped. The guy couldn't say a word. His face was swollen and bloodied, looking quite tragic. Unfortunately, Han Feng had no intention of letting him go. He picked up a nearby baseball bat. He slowly walked over, clearly intending to kill him. The guy whispered, "Give me a reason." Han Feng gritted his teeth and replied, "A reason, stop pretending for me." As soon as he finished speaking, he violently slammed the bat into his head, blood splattering everywhere in an instant. He gritted his teeth and cursed, "When you tried to kill me, did you ask for a reason?" Just as he finished speaking, he realized the person in front of him was already dead. He covered his mouth in shock at this horrifying scene, but he couldn't help it and vomited right there. At that moment, the sound of a door opening suddenly rang out, and Han Feng turned around in shock, only to see the little girl sitting curled up in a corner. The little girl quietly asked if she could help with anything. After that, the two of them handled the corpse of that bastard and went back inside the house. Han Feng looked at the girl in front of him, unable to shake off his doubts about such a terrifying scene. Yet the girl showed no signs of fear at all. This girl was a bit scary. It was best not to let her stay at his house. After thinking for a moment, he spoke up. Those people could come back for revenge at any time. So she would be implicated if she stayed here. However, the girl remained unconcerned, quietly drinking water. Han Fong grew more anxious, wondering if she would agree or not. I'm doing this for your own good. At this moment, the girl shook her head and replied, No, I want to stay here. Han Fong angrily said, But staying here is very dangerous. We could both die. Just as he finished speaking, the girl placed her cup of water on the table. She calmly said, No need to worry, the Dark Prince will help you. The Dark Prince has used up all his energy and needs to sleep now. Saying that, the girl turned back to her room. Han Fong quickly grabbed her hand, pulling her back dissatisfied, and said not to always use her second-person speech to torture me. I'm talking to you about these real issues. The girl glanced at the arm holding her, said something incomprehensible, then reached for the door handle. Han Fong looked at her suspiciously, wondering what was next. Just as the door opened, his eyes widened in shock. On the other side of the building, a group of people was preparing to distribute supplies gathered around a table set up by the management. To receive food, that woman Hui Na was also there. To get the supplies, she had falsified her name, number 601, Building 4, the Liu family. A staff member quickly handed the supplies to her. After she turned and left, another person used that room number to receive supplies. The management was surprised and questioned her, but she didn't care. She was thinking about the previous night when the guy who went with her didn't come back. Moreover, why did he suddenly collapse at that time? Could it be that Han Pong did something? However, what worried her more was that when Han Pong opened the door, there was clearly a faint light and warmth inside, indicating he had something to generate electricity. She suspected he knew about the disaster in advance and had prepared. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. If that was the case, he knew but didn't tell her, even giving her useless junk. She needed to find time to confirm the situation at his home. While she was lost in thought, she accidentally bumped into someone coming towards her. That person glanced at her and then called out, Wait, isn't that Haona? She was a bit surprised to see the person in front of her. That person looked at her and smiled, saying, Wei Na, we're burning a charcoal stove in the lobby of Building 5. Do you want to come over and warm up? She hid the supplies in her hand, turned coldly, and said, No need, I want to go home to warm up. However, just as she took 2 steps, she was pulled back by that person. He said, I have a lot of food here. Come over to my place for a few days. As he said this, he leaned close to Huana's ear and whispered, Just think about it, I've always liked girls like you. She angrily pushed his hand away, gritting her teeth. Get lost, what do you think I am? Who cares about your trash? When she spoke softly, the other person snorted coldly, looking down on her, pretending to be something she wasn't. Did she really think no one could see through her, just relying on herself to pretend to be someone from the management? Do you believe I can expose your true face? As soon as these words were spoken, the people behind immediately started whispering, causing Hu Na to be terrified. She hit the person with the supplies in her hand. Let me go! The other person didn't expect her to act like that. He was furious and wanted to retaliate against this bitch. However, before he would do anything, a hand slapped his face, sending him flying away, and an angry voice followed, Don't bully women. The crowd waiting to receive supplies noticed the commotion and frowned, murmuring, their eyes all turned towards the man who was sitting there trembling. But no one came to help. The one who struck him was Qi Nian. She looked at Hui Na and asked, Are you okay? Sitting there trembling. But no one came to help. The one who struck him was Qing Hien. She looked at Hui Na and asked if she was okay. Are you hurt anywhere? Is there anywhere you feel uncomfortable? Hui Na waved her hand and shook her head, saying no thank you, and took out a business card to give to her. She smiled and said, Here you go. If you feel uncomfortable anywhere, just come to me. Okay, no need thank you, Hu Na said coldly, then turned to leave. At that moment, the man had woken up angrily, shouting, You filthy bitch! And grabbed Qing Qian by the collar, quickly pushing her to the ground while cursing. How dare you meddle? Let her get hit, huh? Hui Na still stood there, not intending to stop the man who was about to throw a punch at Qing Qian, but before he could, another hand grabbed him and pulled him away. The newcomer was Tungia, who forcefully pinned him to the ground, snorting coldly, The thing I hate most in life is men who hit women. Just then, Haku finally arrived, and upon seeing him, the man quickly accused him, thinking he was impersonating someone to receive supplies. I saw her with a group of 2 women pushing the prices of supplies up. Hui Na hurriedly denied it, and Tungia, seeing this, became indignant and wanted to rush up to hit him. Why does a bastard like you who hits women have the audacity to show your face? Accusation, huh? Just as he was about to do anything, his collar was grabbed by a hand, and Hak-Hu shouted loudly, "Do you think the supply committee is just any place? Our duty and responsibility are to protect vulnerable groups and provide everyone with food to survive," the guy hastily said. "Sorry," Hak-Hu snorted coldly. "Next time you better get out of here," he said, then turned away. He walked up to Qin Yan and Tung Ye, apologizing for scaring them. "What I said last time, have you two really thought it through?" Hearing this, Tung Ye turned his head away. He coldly said, "I'm not interested in gathering people to rob. I won't join you even if I starve." Qin Yan softly refused. "I'm sorry, Mr. Tuang. I still can't accept this method. But if you have patience here, then I can still help you." Hak-Hu watched their backs with a bit of helplessness, sighing. At that moment, Huan-Na suddenly pulled his hand from behind. She whispered, "Tuang-Ka, can I join everyone?" Still the same old habit, she leaned close to Hak-Hu, starting to flirt with him. "Actually, I admired you a lot before, but I didn't have the chance. But now it's different. We have plenty of time." However, Hak-Hu bluntly pushed her away and refused. "Miss Lai, are you mistaken? Those two know how to fight and one can heal. May I ask what you know right now? You have no value to be accepted at all." After saying that, he turned and walked away. Huan-Na felt a bit anxious when things didn't go as planned, and she quickly shouted, thinking it was a joke. "What if I said I know where to find the supplies?" Meanwhile, at Han Feng's house, his frustrated shouts echoed continuously. "How many times have I said this already? It has blades, 3 square edges, and a roof." Hearing his words, the girl with the spatial ability reached into a rift in front of her and quickly pulled something out. Han Feng joyfully exclaimed, "I found it." But what she pulled out was just a model of a face, and he felt annoyed. "Isn't this a model from the clothing rack? What does it have to do with what I just described?" Han Feng sighed in frustration, summarizing simply. "This middle school girl has the ability to store space. She can open a black hole in front of her chest and pull out everything she sees, but putting things in is easy. Taking them out is the challenge. The chances of her finding the right item are very low." Han Feng frowned and asked her, "What's it like inside your black hole? Why is it so hard to find things?" He kept questioning, and she shook her head, saying, "I've never explored it." He continued to ask, "Can I stick my head in and help you find it?" She nodded slightly, and Han Feng was taken aback, but before he could regain his composure, the ground shook violently, causing everyone to fall. Thinking quickly, he leaned in. Before long, he slipped inside the rift. Han Feng slowly opened his eyes and looked around, immediately astonished and furrowing his brow because there were so many objects in front of him. The space was so vast that he couldn't believe it. No wonder the ability could clear out a supermarket overnight. But isn't this like a treasure mine? Just at that moment, Han Feng suddenly felt suffocated, his whole body trembling. He quickly pulled himself out of the rift. Only then could he breathe normally, kneeling on the ground, coughing. After a moment, he angrily questioned, "Why didn't you tell me there was no oxygen inside?" Moreover, it felt like the water in my body was being drained. The girl with the spatial ability replied indifferently, "I didn't know." Just then, she suddenly exclaimed, and a moment later she pulled something out again. Looking at what was in front of him, Han Feng immediately cheered, "This is it, it's really here." But at that moment she added, "I found other things too." In an instant, his house was covered with a pile of objects. Han Feng exclaimed in shock, "These are from the dark stairwell of the building!" A group of people groped their way through the darkness, slowly making their way to the 18th floor, but 2 of them behind were trembling non-stop. "This 18th floor is really eerie. Do we really have to go up? We won't run into that monster, will we?" Hearing this, the person in front immediately expressed dissatisfaction. "It's the 21st century already. Do you two still believe in ghosts?" They were sent by the school to investigate the truth of what Huan-Na said. They didn't want to disappoint him. Someone skeptically asked, "What if that girl is lying about Mr. Tuang?" The other person angrily snapped, "Stop talking nonsense. Trust Mr. Tuang's judgment, resolve this quickly, and come back as soon as possible." They just didn't know that their actions had been seen by Han Feng and the others through the previously installed cameras. Where did these things come from? Of course, from the space of the girl with the spatial ability. Han Feng considered for a moment before suggesting they start the second plan. "I'll go light the fire, and when I come back, you can go outside." The girl nodded slightly, indicating she understood. You turned and walked outside, reminding yourself to time it just right. The clock showed only 2 minutes left. Below the stairs, the group suddenly felt something was off and stopped. The person in front hesitated and spoke up. "Did you two hear anything up ahead?" The two trembled in fear. "Could it be a ghost?" While they were still in doubt, a sudden flash of light appeared at the top of the stairs. Right after that, a series of toy cars suddenly rushed forward, but they were loaded with firecrackers. The group frowned, questioning whether they were just toy cars. But in the next moment, a car came right in front of him and he saw the fuses burning brightly. Unfortunately, he realized too late that the firecrackers had already exploded. This engulfed them in smoke and flames. Due to the smoke, they couldn't see anything and frantic sounds echoed continuously. Just when they thought it was over, strange things appeared above their heads, all of which had firecrackers. The group immediately screamed and ran away. The remote-controlled plane frantically chased after them. Through the camera, the girl, the Ta Vuong, saw the whole scene. She looked at Han Feng and asked suspiciously, "Should I throw it now?" But he shook his head, saying, "Not yet, wait a bit longer. This time we need to teach them a lesson." At this moment, there were about 15 seconds left, but the man suddenly turned around and struck the plane with a stick, causing Han Feng to shout in panic, "Be careful, don't break the plane!" But it was too late. The man had already hit one of the wings, damaging the left side. The girl Ta Vuong shook her head, saying, "It's out of control on the left." "We can't stabilize it," Han Feng quickly said. "Control it. That's the only one we've got." Time slowly passed, and only 3 seconds remained. Han Feng could only urge the girl Ta Vuong to hold on a little longer until there was just 1 second left. With a loud bang, the building erupted with fireworks lighting up the snowy sky, but the plane of the two Han Feng kept flying above. The right propeller was damaged and was descending. Han Feng hurriedly said, "Find a place for it to land quickly, don't let it break." The girl Ta Vuong struggled to control it and finally stopped outside a window on some floor. Han Feng heard this and stood up from his seat, saying, "I'll go get it right away. This drone is very important to us." But the girl suddenly spoke up, "There's a body on the stairs." Han Feng was startled and leaned closer to the camera. "Let me see." He leaned in and indeed saw a person lying on the stairs. He exclaimed in shock, "Isn't that Brother Lee? Why is he lying there?" Could it be that he was shot too? After hesitating for a moment, he went to open a cabinet and then slowly said, "I'll be right back. I have the key, so don't open the door randomly." He quickly grabbed something from the cabinet, but at that moment, something suddenly appeared in front of him. He looked up at the girl Ta Vuong and asked, "What is this?" She calmly replied, "It's for ensuring communication." Han Feng nodded slightly, took it, and thanked her. He stepped out slowly with the gun, hoping he wouldn't need to use it. Han Feng walked down the stairs while the girl Ta Vuong continuously monitored through the camera. The lower he went, the more he felt the cold air. According to the drone's readings, the outside temperature was minus 49 degrees. Without protection, a person would freeze to death in just half an hour. At this moment, Tung Hia's situation wasn't great, so he had to win quickly. On the other side, the person who went to scout returned and reported everything to Hak Hu. After hearing it, he nodded, understanding. "I got it, you've worked hard." He ordered the others to distribute warm clothing for them to wear. Then he handed 3 packs of supplies to 3 people, smiling as he said, "We will definitely not let down everyone's contributions." The 3 quickly accepted and thanked him. Over here, Huana, sitting in a corner, finally dared to speak up. "Can I join everyone now?" However, Hak Hu shook his head. "First, we can't confirm whether this was done by your friend or not. Second, if Uncle Lou didn't see the person transporting the goods with his own eyes, I won't believe you at all." As he said this, he turned to everyone and said, "Let's go upstairs together. Get another tool for her lie." Regardless of whether your information is true or false or what your real intentions are in the next actions, I hope you can prove your worth. Hearing this, Huina frowned, then walked over to Tai Vo, taking the stick from his hand. She nodded firmly and said, "I understand." Hak Hu quickly gathered everyone seriously, reminding them that they are all important resources for our group, and to pay attention to safety when going upstairs. So a group of them slowly went up the stairs with Hak Hu naturally leading the way. At that moment, Tai Vo suddenly shouted, "Sir, look over there, that's Li Tu Nagia." He was lying unconscious on the stairs. Hak Hu approached and offered him water. Very quickly he woke up from his stupor, but the water was too hot, causing him to shiver and cry out. Once he calmed down, he was startled to realize that the ones who saved him were Hak Hu's group. He immediately stood up, coughing once, and upon seeing this scene, Tai Vo immediately got angry, scolding Li Tun Gia. "What kind of attitude is that? The sir saved you and you can't even thank him?" Tung Hia heard this and snorted coldly, disdainfully, saying, "If I were to thank anyone, it would be those who had their supplies stolen by you. Stop pretending to be a hero." Tai Vo was even angrier, you little bastard. Tai Vo was even angrier at that bastard. My friend reached out to stop me smiling as he said, I really want to invite you to join us. I sighed coldly. What a pain. I've told you so many times that I absolutely won't participate. Seeing his attitude, Tai Vo grew even more furious. Lai, don't be shameless. Lee didn't care much. Calmly, I said, so you want to force me to join your group. After saying that, I turned and walked away. But just a few steps later, my friend pulled me back. He smiled at me and said, Hey, do you have any misunderstandings about us? We just hope you can contribute and bring hope to those weak and disadvantaged people. My friend pointed at his face and bluntly said, You think you're so special. I don't know what you're thinking. It takes you 3 days to give those people just one meal. What's the difference from waiting to die? Moreover, you have no father, no mother, so don't think your tricks can fool me. At that moment, Han Pong, who was on the stairs, couldn't help but be startled by my friend's words. 3 days, just one meal? Saying that shows that the students really don't care about them, and to win over the young people, the management will have to accept the older ones. If this continues, sooner or later, there will be conflicts within the committee due to the weak and disabled. Below, Tai Vo angrily shouted, Hey, don't be rude. Do you want to join or not? If you don't want to join, get lost and don't block their way. Hearing this, Tuang felt the tension. He slammed his head against the guys, snorting coldly. What if I avoid you? The group saw him standing on the stairs, weapons drawn, ready to charge. Seeing this, the students sighed and then looked at Tai Vo, nodding in agreement. He could charge in immediately, but the crowd had been pushed back step by Tuang, who glared at them defiantly, saying, You think I'm scared of you? Up above, Han Pong saw the situation and couldn't help but worry. Lee's condition was nearly collapsing. You have to go help him, but their numbers are too overwhelming. Even if you go, you won't be able to do anything. You hesitated for a long time and didn't step forward, needing his help a lot. You can't just stand there and watch him die. After thinking for a moment, you reached into your pocket and pulled out your 6-shooter, aiming it down, but you still hadn't fired. Tuang was being pushed against the wall by the students when he suddenly saw something. Just as he was wondering, a gunshot suddenly rang out, and the bat in Tai Vo's hand fell to the ground. In an instant, his face was filled with fear. He trembled and fell to the ground, and the people behind him panicked and hurriedly retreated. Han Pong above aimed his gun at them, warning them to stay silent and not move. Seeing the gun in your hand, the crowd was even more terrified. Tuang looked at you standing next to him, unable to help but doubt, Brother, are you with the students? At this moment, no one dared to say a word. Constantly trembling behind Hu Na, mixed in with the crowd, frowned at you, wondering how you dared to come out with a gun in front. Han Fong handed his house key to Tuang. He took it and they slowly backed up. He hurriedly nodded and then followed Han Fong up while the students kept retreating. He asked for his opinion on what to do, but Han Fong didn't give them a chance to talk. He fired again, startling them. He coldly warned, I told you don't move, drop your weapons and kneel down. The group was terrified of the dark muzzle and could only obey. Seeing this, Han Pong urged Tuang to hurry up while still aiming at them. In an instant, the two of them disappeared from sight. The crowd could only blink as they watched the two step up high, and at this moment the students finally dared to speak. Does anyone know who that was? Wei Na quickly replied, That's Han Fong. We're almost at his house. Tai Vo, hearing this, was dissatisfied and grabbed her collar, shouting, Why didn't you say earlier that he has a gun? She shook her head in fear. This is my first time meeting the students. It seems they believe her, so go stop Tai Vo. All right, I believe you. I don't think she would lie to us. He then turned to everyone, reassuring them to think carefully. With such an important weapon, if he has it, how could he not have supplies? As soon as he said this, the crowd behind him immediately nodded in agreement, and the students didn't give up, continuing to sway their hearts. Moreover, what if he is the one who raised the prices? At that moment, the students remembered what Lao Lu had said, that the person he encountered was probably him. At that moment, Tai Vo suddenly spoke up. We're still following the original plan, right? What if he shoots? No, if he dared to kill, he would have done it already. My friend shook his head and said he didn't believe they could stay locked in that room without going outside. Then he looked at everyone and said, Now the plan has changed. We need to go back and prepare safety measures, then we'll come back. We must take over Han Pong's room from another angle. The two of us returned quickly. I hurriedly opened the door, but my hands kept trembling and I couldn't get it open for a long time. I apologetically said, Sorry. Han Fong declined to comment. Don't worry, it seems they aren't chasing us. After a while, I finally managed to get the key into the lock. The moment the door opened, I felt warmth and just stood there. Han Pong waited for a long time, a bit impatient, urging me to hurry inside. It was only then that I regained my composure and entered the room, only to discover there was a heater and a generator which every household needed, and more importantly, supplies scattered all around. I walked around in shock, my eyes wide. What on earth is going on here? Han Fong was about to explain when the door suddenly opened, startling me. I saw a little girl, the princess, peeking out and quietly asking, "Where's the drone?" Han Fong jumped, realizing he had forgotten about it. The more I heard, the more surprised I became, questioning, what drone? 2 hours later, Han Fong explained everything to me while eating, and I nodded, so that's it. But I still couldn't help but feel impressed. This is really remarkable. To be able to predict disasters and prepare so much, it seems studying hard really pays off. Han Fong chuckled softly, apologizing. "I'm sorry. I was worried that news about the supplies would leak, so I never told you the truth." However, I didn't mind much. I placed my chopsticks on the table, then stood up and bowed to Han Pong. "Thank you, little brother. If it weren't for you, I might have died. You've treated me so well, truly selflessly." Han Fong was a bit surprised by my actions and quickly said, "Don't mention it. You've helped me a lot, too. Come on, let's keep eating. I have plenty of food." My eyes filled with emotion as I sincerely said, "You're really a good person." After a moment of sentiment, I sat back down at the table to eat. He spoke while eating. "That's right, little brother. The situation in the residential area has changed a lot from before." He asked if you still remembered the message I sent you. Since that day, they thought they could exploit the so-called collectivism to rob supplies everywhere. Some people complied while others refused, and after some left. They pretended not to care at all on the outside. But behind the scenes, they sent Kim Tai-vo to deal with them, claiming it was to reduce the threat. Han Pong frowned and asked if he was the twin brother of those college students. Tung Yia nodded slightly, confirming, "That's right, the qualities are all learned from the womb?" Han Pong thought for a moment before speaking. "It's not surprising. When the management of the residential area is developing so rapidly, the methods are truly dirty. This guy is indeed not easy to deal with. But at this moment..." Suddenly, Tung Kia coldly remarked, just like the saying goes, "What goes around comes around." Guess who they ended up robbing? They robbed Li Chin-hao, that boxer. He had once won the championship in his weight class. Han Pong was startled and asked, "So didn't those guys from the committee get beaten up badly?" Tung Hia shook his head and replied, "Not exactly, but they wanted to save face so they won't admit to their defeat. Those guys were encouraged by that guy Tuang. They continued to recklessly challenge Li Chin-hao, but ended up getting knocked out by him. Because of this, Chin-hao also picked up 2 followers, one of whom was quite famous. One was Trin Duong Vu, an old fan of Li Chin-hao. I heard he had been boxing for a few years and was known for his speed. The other was Kim Trung-tai. A die-hard fan of Li Chin-hao, they say he was born with incredible strength. His massive body was like that of a monster. With the reputation of these two and Li Chin-hao, they formed a force in the community, and this group really hated that Tuang guy. To redirect the conflict, Tuang was looking for ways to rob Han Pong. After hearing this, you immediately questioned, "So is that how it is?" "Pulling in your brother was just a last-minute idea," Tung Yia said with a slight nod. Han Pong furrowed his brow in contemplation. No wonder that bastard Tuang wanted to recruit Tung Yia. It seemed like his side wasn't too comfortable either. Just then, a sound suddenly rang out from outside, startling the 3 of them. The girl Ta Vuong looked at the camera and said, "Someone's coming." It was the group of Tuang Hoc Hu. Han Pong quickly stood up and said, "I'll go close the door." But before he could do anything, a hand pulled him back. The girl Ta Vuong warned him. The girl said she smelled sulfur. Han Pong was slightly startled, but before he could regain his composure, the ground shook violently, causing everyone to fall. Han Pong was a bit angry and cursed, "How dare they blow up my house?" The girl Ta Vuong calmly said, "They must have used local explosives. This type of bomb isn't very strong." Han Pong frowned and asked, "You know about this too?" He was just asking casually. Then he looked at the camera and quickly spotted a familiar figure, unable to suppress a sneer. It turned out that it was that Hu Na who brought Tuang Hoc Hu here, saying that he walked over to the shelf and began to check the electricity, then suggested everyone stand back from the door a bit. Once the 2 stepped back a bit, he started to electrify it. Immediately, a scream rang out from outside as someone at the door got electrocuted and fell to the ground. Hak-Hu was a bit surprised to see this, but he quickly regained his composure. He immediately ordered to place explosives at the junction between the door and the wall. This time used 2 packs. Taivo followed the order and placed 2 packs of explosives at the door. With a loud bang, the explosion echoed and cracks began to appear in the wall, but the door still didn't budge. Hak-Hu frowned slightly, not expecting this to happen. The explosives should have been fine. It seemed Han Pong had prepared for this beforehand. After pondering for a long while, he finally spoke up. This time use 3 packs of explosives. And I'll designate the spot for the explosion. If it still doesn't budge, we'll keep increasing the dosage. Today we must break into Han Fong's house. Inside the house, Han Fong had blocked many objects in front of the door. Just as they finished, the door shook again and the two quickly covered their ears. Han Fong asked what was happening, but Tung Hia couldn't hear anything at all. When the deafening noise finally subsided, Han Pong was startled and shouted, "What was that noise?" Tung Hia quickly said, "The wall is being broken. Go get something to block it." Han Fong was a bit anxious, fearing that if this continued, the hole would get bigger. After thinking for a moment, he spoke up, "Blocking it won't help. Quickly move everything away. I have a solution." Tung Hia frowned and asked, "What time is it? And you're still moving things?" Just then, before Han Pong could reply, the girl Ta Vuong came over and said, "I'll help." Tung Hia shot a glance at this girl, thinking she was joking. "Go back to the bedroom and hide." Just as she finished speaking, Han Pong saw a spatial rift appear in front of the girl, but even more astonishing was that various objects were being sucked into it. "Go back to the bedroom and hide." Just as he finished speaking, he saw a spatial rift appear in front of the girl, but even more astonishing was that various objects were being sucked into it. A moment later, everything was pulled into a terrifying void, and the fear echoed, "Is everything really being sucked in?" Before he could regain his composure, Han Feng saw a purple light appear in his hands. He tried to soften the wall to see if he could reshape it. But he had to control the range, otherwise the freezing process would take a long time. Immediately, the purple light surrounded the wall, and after a moment, Han Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. One of his hands shifted to a blue light, and quickly the 2 beams of light intertwined, combining to reshape the wall. Han Feng watched as the wall gradually got repaired. His eyes sparkled with satisfaction at this sight. Ziyi exclaimed in shock, "Wow, what kind of superpower is this?" At that moment, Han Feng was unsure how to explain. Suddenly, the little girl, the Demon King, shouted and lay down as if at the same time the ground began to shake violently and the wall that had just been repaired started to crack. This made Han Feng a bit panicked. The little girl quickly explained, "They're exploding right in front of us." Han Feng, biting his lip in frustration, thought that no matter how he repaired it, it would be useless. After thinking for a long time, he finally spoke, "I have a dangerous idea. Are you all ready to trust me?" The little girl, the Demon King, immediately agreed without hesitation, and Ziyi quickly chimed in. "What do you need? Just say it." Both nodded, and Han Feng said seriously, "All right then, just follow my lead." In an instant, loud explosions erupted, and the door to Han Feng's room began to shake violently. Before long, it cracked open, and a group led by Tai Vo slowly entered. He instructed everyone to be careful and to scavenge all the supplies, reminding them to be cautious as they might be ambushed. Soon after, a group of people began to rummage through Han Feng's house like thieves searching for supplies, but unfortunately there was nothing at all. Tai Vo came out of the kitchen holding a box. With an annoyed expression, he said, "I thought the kitchen only had some trash in this seed box." Hak-Hu was a bit surprised to see the seed box. Taivo angrily scolded, "Huina, damn it, you didn't trick us, did you?" She immediately shook her head in denial. "I didn't. Maybe he hid it in his room." The 2 of them then entered the room to search for supplies, carefully stepping in as they didn't want to get shot. One guy pushed the door and felt an obstruction behind it, not even having time to react. His face was forcefully pressed down by a foot. It's Ziyi who had rushed out from inside, using the door's momentum to pin the 2 down. Han Feng followed suit gun in hand. As soon as they saw him, the group shouted, "Be careful!" Both sides fell into a standoff. Han Feng then warned, "Get the hell out of here, or I won't hold back." "Hold back?" Hak-Hu scoffed. "Have you ever held back before?" He accused Han Feng of hoarding supplies and neglecting the group, causing many residents to suffer from hunger. He also said they were here to demand justice, pointing out the hypocritical scoundrel who was robbing others. "And you say that with such dignity." But he spoke without any shame. He continued to threaten Han Feng under the guise of the collective, saying, "If you still have a shred of conscience, hand over the supplies. Unity is what will help us survive the apocalypse." Han Feng scoffed at him. On the surface, this guy sounded imposing, but in reality, he was just a moral bind. People like him were truly contemptible, yet these fools believed in him. Like a pack of starving wolves with bloodshot eyes, they were desperate to vent their frustrations. Right now, he had become the target for their anger. He just needed to handle it appropriately. Thinking this, Han Feng immediately shouted, "What nonsense are you talking about? Which of your eyes saw my house with the supplies, Huena? I'm sure you're hiding something. She mentioned it last time she came here. In your room, there's even a heater and lights. If you don't confess honestly, just wait for your doom." Just as she finished speaking, a bullet pierced the glass in front of her. Of course, it was Han Feng who shot. He coldly said, "Huena, how can you still have the face to say that? If it weren't for you tricking me into trading supplies for seeds, I wouldn't have ended up in this situation." Tai Vo seemed to believe me and turned to scold Huena. "Damn it, are you messing with us?" She frightened, shook her head. "No, I'm really not lying." Seeing the two of them arguing, Hak Hu spoke up to mediate. "Don't fight amongst yourselves. I have a simple way. You guys go check his room." He pointed at the two sitting on the ground. He raised an eyebrow at Han Feng, provoking him. "Han, you wouldn't refuse, right? You're well prepared." Han Feng didn't oppose it. A moment later, those people came out to report. "You thought there was just a bit of trash and a little girl in the room?" The person they mentioned was the little girl, the Demon Queen. She jumped into Han Feng's arms, crying, "Brother, I'm scared. I'm hungry." Han Feng quickly comforted her. "Don't be afraid. Once they leave, I'll find food for you." In the end, they didn't find anything and had to leave. Feeling a bit dissatisfied, he kept mumbling in annoyance. Hak Hu glanced at Hui Na and said seriously, "I need an explanation for how things got this far." After all, she had to give everyone an explanation. She didn't know how everything turned out like this. She hurriedly explained, "I really didn't deceive you. I clearly saw her." She glared at Han Feng from across the room. Internally furious, she thought, "Is it him who's washing his hands of this? It's all because of him that I ended up like this. It's all that damn guy's fault," she thought. The flashlight in her hand suddenly pointed at Han Feng. Her action startled him, and the light from the flashlight made his eyes uncomfortable. While he was unguarded, she snatched the gun from his hand. Hui Na aimed the gun at Han Feng, angrily shouting, "Where are you hiding the supplies? Are you playing tricks? Tell everyone the truth or I'll shoot!" The people around Hak Hu watched this scene with some concern. Han Feng remained calm, smirking. "The truth, my supplies were long gone because of you." "You're lying! You're a fraud! I'll kill you!" Hui Na shouted angrily. Unfortunately, someone like her who never did heavy work couldn't hold the gun properly and dropped it in an instant. The group led by Tai Vo conveniently approached to grab her, making her struggle in defiance. Han Feng saw his gun on the ground and wanted to pick it up, but he was a step too late. A pair of hands were faster than him. It was that bastard Hak Tuang. He didn't know what he was planning. The two just faced each other while Tai Vo kept pulling Huena's hair and scolding her. "You filthy whore! How dare you deceive us!" As soon as he finished speaking, he raised the stick in his hand, wanting to beat her up. Unfortunately, before he could bring it down, Hak Hu grabbed his hand, stopping him and speaking seriously. "The management team is not a violent organization, and this is not a place for punishment. Even if she deceived us, at least give her a chance to correct her mistakes." After saying that, he turned to Han Feng, putting on a pretentious, annoying demeanor, and said, "Han, I'm very sorry about today. We are all victims. I will give you an explanation later." He said this while returning the gun to Han Feng, who was a bit surprised by this action. Without suspicion, he reached out to take it. Hak Hu continued, "I sincerely invite you to join the management team." He said, "You don't need to answer right now. Just think about it. Tomorrow when you come to collect the supplies, let me know your thoughts." After that, he led the group away. "Just think about it. Tomorrow when you go to collect the supplies, the company will think about your thoughts, then take the group and leave." They waited until only 3 people were left in the room before Xinjiang anxiously asked, "Hey, are you hurt?" Han Feng shook his head slightly and sighed, "Well, it's finally over." Right after that, the 3 of them went to the room on the upper floor where the little girl, the Demon Lord, rested. Xinjiang couldn't help but express his surprise that the girl had a room up there too. Han Feng nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it's big and spacious, much more comfortable than my place. Thanks to her, we were able to reenact this scene from earlier." Han Feng had told the girl to put everything away in the house. "But remember to leave 1 bag of trash and some packaging. Don't clean everything up." He ordered Xinjiang to open the window to let the temperature in the room drop quickly, saying they had to do this for the place. It looked like there hadn't been food for a long time. They let the people outside break down the door, but in the end, they got nothing. They thought it would be a big battle. If they returned empty-handed, it would definitely stir up public outrage in that case. People would point fingers at the weaker side. Plus, Han Feng had a gun so that Hui Na would definitely become the scapegoat. Jin Yang frowned upon hearing this. But there were so many of them. Even with a gun, it might not be safe, right? For example, the gun that was just taken away. That would be the worst-case scenario. Han Feng nodded slightly and replied that after getting the gun, Ji Huo might be able to resolve the issue peacefully to maintain their image. Jin Yang continued to ask, but what if Ji Huo starts shooting? With a slight chuckle, Han Feng calmly said, "There's only one bullet in the gun." Moreover, it had already been used by his little brother. Hearing this, Jin Yang understood and gave a thumbs up, praising him. "You're really clever, so you intentionally let them take the gun, right?" Han Feng casually replied, "Let's just say it was part of the plan." Jin Yang nodded and said, "So the next step is to pretend to struggle and earn money quietly." However, Han Feng disagreed. Their next mission was to overthrow that damn management team. Below the management team was distributing supplies to everyone, and the scene was too noisy and chaotic, causing them not to notice that two people were quietly entering the supply room. At that moment, two members of the management team were coming out. They were assigned to check the supply door. Han Feng and Jin Yang hid to the side, watching them. Their eyes met, and the two silently made plans. According to Jin Yang's investigation, the first 4 floors had been cleared, and the 5th and 6th floors were occupied by building support staff. So they couldn't go up to the 7th and 8th floors. He believed the warehouse was probably up there. There would be guards on the 5th floor. He would go up first to distract them, while Han Feng took the opportunity to knock them out with a stick, trying not to use the gun. Following the plan, the two slowly made their way up, but it felt a bit strange. There was still no one around. They continued to the 6th floor, still no one, but Han Feng reminded Jin Yang not to let his guard down. They stopped on the 7th floor, but encountered no obstacles. Han Feng hesitated and asked, "Are you sure they would keep the supplies on these 2 floors?" Jin Yang shook his head, saying he wasn't sure about the current situation. After looking around for a while, he finally spoke, "If there are no guards, then let's move on. But not seeing a single person is a bit exaggerated, isn't it? They can't be sure, so they can only take it step by step." Tung Hia suggested they split up, going left and right. If anything happens, just shout. Han Pong nodded slightly and then carefully moved inside, thinking he would have to fight to get through. But this is fine, too. This time is just to scout the way. Earlier in the Dark Lord's room, the 3 of them were eating and discussing plans. Han Pong said seriously, "There are too many people in the management. We can't defeat them alone. The only way to overthrow them is to eliminate them from within." In his view, the management is an organization connected by supplies, as long as they find the warehouse. The place where the supplies are stored, and let the Dark Lord girl clean it out, then the management will immediately collapse. Saying it is one thing, though. Who knows which room they put the supplies in? Still have to be careful that someone might come up at any time. While Han Pong was thinking, he saw Tung Yia happily running over. He felt a bit helpless, didn't I say to be careful? A moment later, the 2 of them stood in front of the warehouse door. Han Pong asked with some doubt, "It's written clearly like this. Don't you think it looks more like a trap?" Tung Hia frowned slightly, but according to the writing here, it's just a storage room. But what's surprising is that even the key is already inserted. It looks just like a trap, but Tung Hia doesn't think so. He whispered that maybe they forgot to take out the key, and if they just opened it, they would know. He raised his hand to unlock it, but Han Pong spoke up to stop him. "Wait, did you see that there's a thin wire wrapped between the key and the handle? This is a classic trap." Han Fong reminded him to be careful. "Remember those 2 mentioned checking the storage door? They might be talking about this trap. Anyway, don't touch it casually, just knowing it's here is enough. They will go upstairs to continue checking. They just need to locate the storage room and find a way to open the door slowly." Han Pong suggested, and Tung Yia nodded in agreement, but at that moment, they encountered 2 others coming out from the door, and the 4 of them stared at each other in confusion for a long time until Han Pong reacted quickly and pulled Tung Yia to run. The 2 of them quickly ran forward, but the 2 guys caught up. One wanted to attack Tung Yia with a stick. Han Fong hurriedly used his hand to block, and Tung Yia took the chance to kick at the guy. Then the 2 of them opened the door in front of them and conveniently used the iron rod to block the door. Han Pong, holding his hurting arm, suspiciously asked why he said there was no one there when they came in. Tung Yia shook his head vaguely. Who knows last time they didn't let him into this floor. Just then, footsteps were heard on the stairs. Han Pong frowned and said, "Damn, someone is coming up." He suggested they go up first. There might be fewer people up there. Soon after, they went up to the 8th floor. Tungia anxiously looked at Han Pong and asked, "Hey, how's your hand?" Han Pong shook his head gently and replied, "It seems like it's broken." But he didn't care much. He calmly said they needed to find a place to hide first. Suddenly, Tungia pointed behind and shouted, "Hey, look out!" Han Pong turned around in confusion, but before he could react, a hand covered his mouth. In the end, he was pulled behind that door. Han Feng was suddenly pulled inside as the door slammed shut, and he couldn't help but let out 2 groans outside, anxiously shouting and banging on the door. "Is your little brother okay? Wait for me to come and save you." In front of Han Feng stood a man who raised his eyebrows and coldly asked, "What are you doing here?" Han Feng, wary, gritted his teeth and replied, "We're here to collect supplies." However, the man didn't believe him. He kicked Han Feng's hand, causing him to scream in pain. The man scoffed, "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old? You guys deliberately avoided the 5th and 6th floors, so you must know something about the management, right?" Han Feng frowned suspiciously, asking, "Have you been following us?" The man disdainfully curled his lip. "You really think no one is watching here?" At this moment, Han Feng suddenly realized that in the corner of the room, a group of people lay unconscious. Could it be that this guy had killed them? Just then, angry shouts rang out from outside. "Catch that guy! Search the rooms!" Han Feng's heart raced. This is bad. Li Ge was still outside, but the man in front of him remained extremely calm. He snorted, his expression unreadable, and then slowly walked towards the window. Without hesitation, he'd opened the window. Realizing his intention, Han Feng exclaimed in shock, "This is the 8th floor. What are you trying to do?" The man replied nonchalantly, "It's actually just the 4th floor. Now the snow has piled up to the 3rd and 4th floors. And with the snow as a cushion, you won't die from the height." He raised an eyebrow, looking seriously at Han Feng. "Jump down or get beaten to death, your choice." As Han Feng hesitated, the sound of footsteps and the door being broken down grew closer. He glanced at the window, but the man was nowhere to be seen. At that moment, the door was being forced open. Seemingly at the same time, Han Feng climbed up to the window, gritting his teeth and jumping down below, falling for a moment. His arm shimmered with a purple light, and on this side the man had safely landed. Hearing the commotion, he glanced over. He saw Han Feng struggling up from the thick snow, while above the pursuers shouted down, "He's still alive! There's another one!" While Han Feng was still dazed, unsure of what to do, the figure of the man rushed past him, crashing into the glass door. It shattered into pieces, and seeing this, Han Feng couldn't help but curse silently. Damn, that's impressive. But he didn't have time to think much. The snow kept falling, and he quickly followed the man's lead. Moments later, the pursuers had also chased down below, but there was no sign of Han Feng and the man. Inside, the man had started a fire to keep warm, and Han Feng sat beside it, lost in thought. This man was quite decent. If it weren't for him earlier, Han Feng might have been discovered. He was very experienced in escaping. Although it went against logic, Han Feng didn't fully believe it, but the facts proved that his decision was indeed correct. While he was lost in thought, the man suddenly spoke up. "What's wrong, scared? They're just dead people." Han Feng was startled and looked at him, asking, "Why are you helping me?" The man snorted, "Helping you? I just wish I could kill you directly." The fact that Han Feng and the others hadn't fallen into the trap on the 7th floor showed they had some brains. He wanted Han Feng to tell him everything he knew about the management. He didn't forget to warn him, "Of course, if you don't want to talk, that's fine too. Then I'll just have another meat shield." Han Feng couldn't help but feel dissatisfied. Judging by the group of people he had knocked out, it was clear this guy was here to steal supplies. Or maybe he had a grudge against the management. The appearance of the two interrupted the plan. After thinking, he looked at the man and asked, "Do you have a grudge against them?" The man pouted and said, "If I say yes, then yes." If it weren't for the secret on that student's body, he wouldn't have even finished speaking when Han Pong immediately shouted, "What secret?" The man smirked sarcastically. He stood in front of Han Pong coldly and said, "You really know about Tuang Hok Hu, and moreover, you have some kind of relationship with him." He warned Han Pong to either spill the information related to the management, or he would become the second corpse here. He should choose. In an instant, Han Pong's expression darkened. Under the flickering flames inside the room, a story was being drawn. Han Pong looked sincerely at the man and spoke. "Then that Tuang Hok Hu brought explosives to my house and kidnapped my woman and supplies." Saying this, he placed his gun on the table, took a deep breath, and continued. To take revenge, we took this hidden item out, but just relying on a gun, we couldn't deal with them. So in the end, we had to use it to find a way to survive. The reality is mixed, but with this six-shooter, how much trust can we have? He silently waited for the man's reaction. After a while, the man finally spoke. A broken six-shooter is basically nothing to worry about with the management. He didn't take your gun, but let you go. This is the best evidence. Han Pong secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seems he believed what he said. Thinking about this, you just keep asking why he didn't take it with him. I think there are two possibilities. The calm man is either putting on a show to maintain his leadership position, or he has a more powerful weapon. He asked you if you brought the death meaning here to deal with them. Han Fong slowly nodded and replied without him the management would have a bit less hassle. In fact, the management's original intention was good. At least it really helped some people survive, but their perception is that they want everyone to think that. The worse someone is, the more comfortable life will be after the apocalypse. Those who have lost their conscience won't be able to reintegrate into society normally. So Han Fong believes that the management needs to be overthrown. This statement made the atmosphere fall into silence, and after a moment the man in front scoffed and spoke up. So what if we overthrow it? This world is all about the strong overpowering the weak. Your idea is ridiculous. The neighborhood will end up in looting and mutual slaughter. Han Feng frowned and looked at him, asking, "Can you imagine what the neighborhood will turn into? So do you want to ask for a third party's opinion?" The man suddenly asked a puzzling question, then pushed the door and stepped outside. Sure enough, someone threw something at him. However, he managed to dodge it. Then he threw a punch at the other person. Yet his punch was blocked and he couldn't help but frown in surprise. He quickly regained his composure and prepared to attack again, his other hand ready to strike the other person's head. Just then Han Feng suddenly came out and looked at the other person. He asked if she was Nurse Kim. The person who came was indeed Qing Yen. She frowned at him, then walked inside and casually bandaged his hand, saying, "I came to collect supplies for Grandpa Lee." As soon as I walked in, I found out that Grandpa had passed away. Then there was a knock at the door from behind, startling her into instinctively hiding in the room. Just as she finished speaking, she heard the man sneer and say that her role in his death was not insignificant. What does the little nurse mean by selfless dedication? It's just... After hearing the mockery, Qin He sighed. He scolded me rightly, but I don't regret it. Whether it's cruel or heartless, it's up to him to name it, but it's only by surviving that I can save more people, that's all. The man fell silent after hearing this. People like her in the apocalypse, what should they be called? A living bodhisattva. She's still struggling to take care of herself, but wants to save foolish people. At this moment, Han Feng suddenly asked if she could come in. Is this place arranged by Tuang Hok Hu beforehand? Qing He nodded slightly and replied, "He gave me a pass and provided a lot of supplies, so I couldn't refuse. But in recent days, Hok Hu has driven many elderly and sick people outside, and Grandpa Lee was one of them. By the time she found out, it was too late." The man spoke again, saying that the management would last longer if they got rid of one person, and if it were me, I would do the same. However, Han Feng rebutted, "That's not right. Lee said that a new force has appeared in the neighborhood. They are the ones opposing the management. It's very likely that Tuang Hok Hu is eager to eliminate that force. That's why he's getting rid of the sick women and children, leaving supplies for the strong, combined with his reckless bombing in front of your house just to gather supplies. There's a possibility that he wants to challenge that force." As soon as these words were spoken, the other two were startled. Han Feng sighed deeply. "If that's true, I need to find the weapons cache." But the man sneered and said, "So what if you find it? What can you do just by finding it?" Han Feng glared at him. "I don't want to be buried with the people in the neighborhood. As long as I find the weapons cache, I'll have a way to deal with it." The man looked at him for a long time. He then coldly replied, "If you want to die, go ahead. In this apocalyptic world, the management of Hok Hu is just a small force. There will be many survival battles in the future. The strong will survive and the weak will perish. The victor will be the last one standing." After saying this, he left, leaving the two of them standing there in confusion. After a while, Qing He looked at Han Feng and asked, "Is there anything I can help you with?" Han Feng shook his head slightly. "No need. I don't want you to get dragged into this mess." But Qing He was very determined. "Don't say that. If your judgment is correct, then the neighborhood is in danger, and about your situation I feel very unfair." Han Feng felt a bit awkward hearing this, but her eyes were filled with determination. He didn't know what to do. After thinking for a while, he finally spoke, "Thanks. If anything comes up, I'll ask for your help." In another part of the management, the group chasing Han Feng had returned to report. Someone suspiciously asked if it was really Han Feng who did it, but they were all certain of it. Just then, there was suddenly the sound of footsteps behind them, and they turned around in shock to see Han Feng walking towards them. And then what awaited you was the dark room that Tai Vo threw you into, where he kept scolding you, thinking that Mr. Tuang had already let you off the hook once. Yet you still dared to come and steal supplies. He wanted to break your other hand to see if you'd dare to steal again. But before he could do anything, someone from outside came in and interrupted, causing a scene. Mr. Tuang told us to gather on the upper floor, and the movement of his hands suddenly froze. Then he turned and left. Leaving Han Pong tied up on the ground, waiting until he was alone, he used his green energy beam to untie himself, which meant he had successfully infiltrated this place. After his wounds healed, he would go look for the weapons stash. This couldn't be delayed any longer. Before long, the ropes were untied and his broken bones had healed. But the healing took too much energy and he almost fainted. From now on, he needed to spend time researching recovery techniques. If this kept happening, it would be disastrous. Just then, he heard noises from the other side. The door quickly swung open, and Han Pong hurriedly tied himself up again. The person outside rushed in and threw a bound person inside before leaving. Hearing footsteps and the door closing, Han Pong opened his eyes. He turned to look at the person who had just been thrown in, but after a closer look, he recognized him. Lying there was Tungia. He quickly untied him, and after a while, he finally woke up coughing twice and thanking his little brother, saying that this slap was really useful. Next time, hit the side that isn't swollen. Now the left side of his face has no feeling anymore. Han Fong chuckled softly. All right, then. So what exactly happened to you, Tungia, remembering what happened earlier, after you were pulled into that door? I saw the corridor door about to be smashed open, so I had to unlock the electrical distribution room and hide in there. As a result, as soon as I entered, I saw something. Inside was a large hole that seemed to lead down to a very deep place. I thought those people would eventually open the electrical distribution cabinet, so I climbed down along the wires, thinking it would lead to the first basement parking lot, but it turned out to lead to the second basement, although there was no one there. There were many boxes stacked on top of each other, each sealed tightly. I opened a few to take a look and found they were all filled with grenades. Each one was as big as his forearm. Just as I was about to take one out to inspect, I suddenly heard a noise behind me, and when I reacted and turned back, Han Pong had already woken me up. But in the end, I understood why the management was so arrogant. They had a whole bunch of grenades, each one very long. Han Pong frowned upon hearing this. He suspiciously asked if the packaging said grenade sausage. Tungia shook his head. There were no words at all. It just looked exactly like a grenade sausage. Han Pong's expression became somewhat serious. Something was off. He asked if that place could be Tuang Hok Hu's secret warehouse. Tungia immediately jolted. Then tell me what you saw while the two of them were still in doubt. Suddenly, an incomprehensible voice came from outside. Why is Mr. Tuang suddenly eager for us to eliminate Li Tuningya? Didn't he always want to recruit him before? The two of them, Han Pong, were startled. They wanted to kill him to silence him. Immediately, the door was pushed open and the two people from outside entered, but they didn't see Han Pong and the other two. They were a bit suspicious. They had clearly tied the two of them up here. The two of them, Han Feng, were startled. They wanted to kill to silence him. Immediately, the door was pushed open by two people from outside. They entered but couldn't find Han Feng and the other two. They were a bit suspicious. They had clearly tied the two people here. While they were still searching, Han Pong had hidden behind the door, waiting for the moment they let their guard down. Tungia quickly attacked, tying them up in no time. Han Fong frowned and spoke up. He's got intentions to kill. We need to see what that is, Tungia asked suspiciously. There are at least 10 boxes. Han Pong slowly replied, Don't worry, I've got it all arranged. First, let's go meet the girl Ta Vuong. Just then, the voice of the girl Ta Vuong rang out. Han Pong asked suspiciously, Is the sister here to pick us up? What's going on? The girl replied quickly. She came to your house to steal your gun and even wanted to kill you. Is everything all right? Hearing this, Han Pong immediately jolted. The one coming is that Hui Na. He hurriedly shouted, Don't open the door, that's Lihuna, not the sister we're supposed to welcome. But no one answered, and before long the communication device was cut off. Han Fong sensed something was wrong and quickly said, Li Ka, let's go pick up the girl. Then the two of them cautiously peeked outside, but a loud noise erupted in front of them. Tungia asked suspiciously, What's going on? Why is it so noisy? Downstairs, Tai Vo was leading a group of people away in a hurry, constantly instructing them to do whatever it takes to stop them. Han Fong, watching their actions from behind, felt a bit suspicious. Could it be that Li Qinhao is attacking? Tungia shook his head, slightly uncertain, but said, "The current situation is in our favor." The two of them quietly blended into the crowd, Tungia whispered. They put on masks and tried to blend into the chaos of the scene. The two of them successfully followed the crowd away. At that moment, a commotion suddenly erupted ahead. A man was thrown out, and soon after, a group of Li Qinhao's people stepped out. Tungia, seeing this scene from behind, couldn't help but panic, gripping Han Feng's hand tightly. Meanwhile, outside the room, Huana was lurking. There was no movement inside, and she speculated that Han Peng had really moved here. Just then, a voice suddenly interrupted her thoughts. Qing Yan was slowly walking over, and she suspiciously asked, "What are you doing here?" Huana flinched and stammered, "I came here to find food." Qing Yan frowned at her, a hint of surprise rising in her heart. "Looking for food? Why did you bring so many people?" Huana, confident with her entourage, replied. "That's right. Is that a problem? Then why are you here?" Qing Yan replied calmly, "I'm here to treat the sick and save lives." "Is there a problem?" Huana was a bit startled. "Is Han Feng sick?" "No, wait." She remembered that the two of them knew each other. Thinking for a moment, she looked at the group beside her who seemed to be discussing something. After a while, they slowly approached Qing Yan, causing her to panic and step back, questioning, "What do you want?" Huana coldly said, "As long as we catch you." "I don't believe Han Feng won't open the door." They quickly grabbed Qing Yan, and one of them apologetically said, "Nurse Kim, sorry." She glared at them, gritting her teeth. "Let me go or I won't be polite." They still didn't let go, but before long she felt her body being lifted. In an instant, the two who were holding her were thrown away. Seeing this, Huana and the others were immediately shocked. Qing Yan glared at them coldly and said, "I don't care what you want to do, but don't disturb my work." However, it seemed Huana was unwilling to leave. She pulled a knife out of her jacket pocket and shouted fiercely, "You're monster!" before lunging toward Qing Yan. She was startled and raised her hands to defend herself with her padded jacket. Her shoe was slashed, and she quickly stepped back. Huana warned everyone that this girl was very strong, so they needed to be careful. But at that moment, the door suddenly swung open, and Huana's group trembled, unable to even hold their weapons. In an instant, their weapons fell from their hands, suspended in the air. Even more surprising, the weapons were sucked into the spatial rift created by the little girl. She began to chant a spell, and a fierce wind surrounded her. In the blink of an eye, the clothes of Huana's group were also sucked away. This caused them to scream in fear. Meanwhile, in the basement of the building, a group of people was fighting. This was clearly a chaotic brawl, and even Han Peng was being chased. As he ran, he complained, "Why do they have to chase us like this? Is it really necessary to keep chasing us?" Tunghia clicked his tongue and said, "But brother, your punches are a bit too strong." He angrily chased after them, cursing, "Damn it, I'm going to smash you guys." Han Feng raised an eyebrow. In an emergency, the reinforced gloves turned out to be quite powerful. Just as they hadn't resolved one issue, another arose. Someone spotted Han Peng and Tunghia escaping. Han Feng felt a bit panicked inside. If they got caught again, it would be the end. He had to think of a way. He immediately shouted, "Brother Li, go get the little girl, I'll hold them off. We'll meet at the agreed location." Tunghia hesitated, surprised. "How can you do it alone?" "Just trust me," he said, then lifted his foot and climbed onto a vehicle. The group behind had caught up. Han Peng stood on the vehicle and pointed the flashlight straight up into the sky. He shouted fiercely, "Listen up, you guys!" He claimed to be one of those who drove up the prices in the neighborhood, making the poor bastards starve. As soon as he said this, the group in front fell silent. Immediately after, they became furious and couldn't hold back anymore, charging at him. Han Feng quickly turned to run, even though the entrance and exit of the underground parking lot were blocked by iron doors. But once the pressure from the snow on the iron gate was released, it would be the end for them. While he was thinking, a fist came swinging at him. Han Feng didn't have time to react, and was struck unable to suppress a cough as he was knocked back, crashing into the wall behind him. The group in front quickly surrounded him, and the leader shouted angrily, "You can't escape, you little brat!" Han Feng ignored them and placed his hand on the door behind him. A purple light appeared in an instant on his hand, enveloping the door. The group stared in shock, eyes wide, but before they could react, the light vanished. At that moment, Han Feng raised an eyebrow and shouted at the group in front, "Come here, you trash!" They were provoked and moved forward, not noticing that the door had become soft. Moreover, it was being pushed inward by external pressure. Soon, snow from outside began to pour in, and the group screamed in fear, "Avalanche, run!" The snow outside rushed in faster and faster, burying many people. They quickly ran to safety, but the basement was soon completely covered in snow. After a while, an arm emerged from beneath the snow. It was Han Pong who had pushed up from under the thick layer. Surprisingly, he didn't feel tired. Was it because his level was higher? Just as he was thinking, a low voice rang out, "Are you waiting to die here?" Han Pong was startled and turned to see a bearded man. He felt like this guy was staring right at him. But at that moment, beneath the layer of snow, someone was stirring, wanting to rise up. Sensing the movement, the man quickly pulled Han Pong away. A little later, in a corner of the basement, after ensuring safety, Han Pong looked at that man. Suspiciously, he asked who he really was and why he helped him. The man casually mentioned a name, and Han Pong was taken aback, stepping back as he questioned if he was the one who had fought with Tuang Hok Hu. The man nodded slightly, confirming it. Han Pong furrowed his brow, looking at him with suspicion, asking what he wanted. Chin Hao calmly replied, "Cooperation." Han Pong continued to inquire. "Didn't you refuse before?" He chuckled lightly, saying, "I've changed my mind." Han Pong didn't believe it and countered, "Suddenly changing your mind? Are you trying to play me?" Chin Hao coldly said, "It's just that we both need what we want. Hurry up and decide or don't." Han Pong fell into deep thought. If he could convince this man to contribute, then the chance to take down that Tuang would be higher. After thinking it over, he nodded in agreement. Although he didn't trust him, they shared a common goal, so cooperating wasn't an issue. Shortly after, the two officially shook hands to cooperate. In another part of the basement, military supplies appeared out of nowhere. Tanks and weapons were all present. Tai Vo approached from a distance, speaking up, "Tuang Tianxin, the convoy has arrived. Can you go upstairs and call the others?" Hok Hu nodded slightly, replying, "Sure." The Kim brothers would go inform the family members to come down first. Tai Vo continued to ask, "The entrance is blocked by snow and the temperature is dropping sharply. Right now the crowd is very scattered and those two have disappeared." Hok Hu frowned after hearing this, then shook his head, saying, "It's fine. It won't affect our plan." On the other side, Han Pong had seen everything. He suspiciously asked, "Why are there military vehicles at our apartment complex?" Chin Hao nodded, replying, "I heard Tuang say he wanted to relocate the residents." Han Pong continued to ask, "But where can they be moved to?" "Isn't it all ice and snow outside?" Chin Hao shrugged, saying, "You'll find out when you ask." Tuang handed this to you. As soon as he finished speaking, he ran off. Han Pong scoffed, "What's the rush?" Meanwhile, Hok Hu was still giving orders for everyone to prepare to go upstairs to greet the arrivals. But at that moment, a gunshot suddenly rang out, startling everyone. "What's going on?" It was the sound of gunfire. Someone had broken in. One shouted loudly, "Everyone be careful, don't scatter!" But just as he finished, a hand suddenly gripped his face tightly. In an instant, he was knocked out. Seeing this, the others immediately opened fire in that direction. But before they could do anything, Chin Hao rushed in, unhesitatingly punching the man in the face. The remaining men, frightened, wanted to flee. Tai Vo immediately shouted a reminder, "Don't run too far, protect Tuang Tianxin." It was at that moment that a dark gun was pointed at the back of Hok Hu's head. Han Pong had rushed over to threaten him. However, he remained calm, saying, "I've been waiting for you for a long time, Han Tianxin." Han Pong was slightly startled, frowning as he asked, "You knew I would come?" He coldly replied, "Of course." At that moment, Tai Vo saw his situation and anxiously called out, "An Tuang," but he waved his hand, saying, "It's fine." He glanced at Han Pong, saying, "Before the disaster struck, you had stockpiled a large amount of supplies. I thought you were one of the contacts. But the truth proves I guessed wrong. Look closely at the gun below." You followed his words, and look, you can see the listening device hidden under the handle. That's when he set this name up. "How did you get this?" "My friend said otherwise. Do you think I would have handed the gun back to you?" "I know exactly what you want." Han Feng took a deep breath, gritting his teeth, and asked, "Even if you know, what can you do? Who is this guy you're talking about? And who are we picking up anyway?" My friend chuckled softly and said, "Don't be so tense. If I wanted to deal with you, I would have done it a long time ago. You're smart. He hopes you can join them. As long as they keep sending people to them, you might survive." Hearing this, Han Feng immediately scoffed in disdain. "You want me to be a bullet shield for you?" "Sorry, I refuse." My friend sighed helplessly. What a pity. Just as he finished speaking, a group of Special Forces soldiers came out from behind, startling Han Feng. "How could they come at this moment?" The soldier aimed his gun at you and you immediately turned to run, bullets relentlessly chasing after you as you dashed past the wall. A hand successfully pulled you in, hiding you against the wall. Han Feng looked up at the newcomer, trembling. "What are you doing? Withdraw first." Yet Hao remained calm and said, "What are you afraid of? It's just 3 soldiers." He suggested, "I'll distract them, you improvise." Hearing his words, Han Feng was horrified. "Don't joke around, they have guns." He didn't pay much attention, still stepping outside his figure, nimbly dodging the bullets flying towards him, moving at an incredible speed that the special forces couldn't do anything to him. Before long, Hao approached one soldier, grabbing the barrel of his gun, fiercely kicking him in the stomach, directly taking his gun. Outside witnessing this scene, Han Feng couldn't help but feel amazed. This guy was definitely not ordinary. Taking advantage of the chaos, the military vehicle started up. My friend immediately ordered, "We need to drive straight up to pick them up." Han Feng certainly wouldn't give them that chance. You quickly summoned the purple light in your hand, then placed your hand on the ground, causing the light to spread across the ground. In an instant, the ground became soft and mushy. They basically couldn't run. The vehicle couldn't move. My friend suspiciously asked, "What's going on?" Taiwo shook his head and said, "The right side seems to be sinking." Hearing this, my friend turned to look back. He saw the ground collapsing. Underneath the vehicle, Han Feng was still fumbling to stop them from escaping. The light in your hand was dimming the area, becoming smaller. If so, it couldn't sink both wheels down. Just at that moment, a grenade suddenly appeared in front of you, startling you into retreat. The person in the vehicle poked their head out, coldly laughing at you. The grenade had been pulled. Flames began to erupt, and with a loud bang, the explosion echoed. Han Feng was thrown out by the blast. In the haze, he felt something cool. A group of goats was licking his body. The cool sensation from their tongues felt very pleasant, but soon he woke up to see a large goat using its long tongue. Touching his body, moreover, it wrapped around him. In an instant, a beam of blue light enveloped his entire body. In the real world, his body was also surrounded by that blue light. The wounds on his body began to heal. That military vehicle surprisingly wasn't affected by the explosion. Taiwo on the vehicle breathed a sigh of relief, saying, "Fortunately, this vehicle has a lot of horsepower. Otherwise, we might not have been able to escape. If not, they probably wouldn't be able to escape." But at this moment, suddenly, a red light appeared on the car's glass and a hand reached in through the window. In an instant, half of the car was shattered by that red light. Taiwo saw him and immediately got furious, aiming his gun at him while cursing the little bastard. Han Feng's eyes also caught sight of that gun's muzzle. It seemed like it was out of focus. He reached out to grab the gun's muzzle, and the red light instantly enveloped the gun, even corroding the fabric on the man's arm. Seeing the situation was dire, his friend quickly shouted, "Get out of the car!" However, Taiwo's clothes had been stripped away, and he was shivering from the cold. He couldn't hold back anymore and grit his teeth, crying out, "It's so cold, help!" At that moment, he suddenly saw someone. His eyes widened in surprise. It was Tai Van, who came with a stick, worriedly calling out to him. He immediately ran towards Han Feng, wanting to attack him while shouting, "You bastard!" Han Feng glanced at him, and in that split second, as the stick swung towards him, he raised his hand to block it. The red light began to envelop Tai Van's stick as his friend ran ahead. Seeing his serious expression, he grit his teeth and said quickly, "Hurry up, call someone down to help Han Feng over here." After dealing with the stick in Tai Van's hand, he glided towards him, approaching the car in front. The people inside the car were terrified and trembling. "He's coming, quickly run him over." But it seemed he didn't hear their words, continuing to move forward, placing both hands on the car. In an instant, the car was enveloped in a purple light. The car quickly melted, causing the people inside to panic and scream, "The car is melting, get out!" But it was too late. They were pinned under the car. The sound of frantic screams echoed. At that moment, a bullet suddenly whizzed past his face. Blood began to flow, but it was quickly healed by the blue light. Seeing this scene, the people on the other side immediately screamed in fear, "He didn't get hit!" At this moment, Han Feng had run towards them, but after only a few steps, the sound of gunfire rang out. The special forces were shooting at him. They wanted to protect that guy, and Hao had noticed this situation. He wanted to rush to help him, but the special forces wouldn't let him go, continuously attacking him. He dodged while thinking to himself, "You bastards!" What were they trying to do? On Han Feng's side, under the relentless assault of the special forces, he was forced to retreat, but a purple light appeared in his hand. Without hesitation, he struck down to the ground, and the special forces felt the ground shift. While they were still in shock, Han Pong had lunged in front of them. He grabbed the two dark gun muzzles and directly broke the guns with his bare hands. Not only that, the broken pieces in his hand suddenly turned into something soft and vine-like. The two soldiers, seeing this, couldn't help but tremble in fear. Unfortunately, he didn't care, using what was in his hand to strike at the two bewildered soldiers. Before they could react, they were slashed across the neck by that thing and died just like that. After taking them down, Han Pong couldn't help but gasp for breath, but he didn't notice Tai Van quietly approaching him from behind, attacking him with the iron stick in his hand. He was caught off guard and knocked to the ground, falling into unconsciousness. Tai Van coldly snorted, "You brought this on yourself, Die Monster." After saying that, he fiercely tried to strike him with the stick. But before he could strike, someone punched him in the face. The one who intervened was Hao, who was holding an unconscious Special Forces soldier. He reached out to pull Han Pong up, his eyes filled with suspicion. "Is he out cold? He was acting crazy just now. Could it be he lost control?" While he was in doubt, there was a commotion on the other side. He hurriedly pulled the person away. His friends had caught up tears in their eyes as they looked at everyone, suggesting, "Everyone be careful! Let's regroup with those 3 soldiers first." But it wasn't long before he saw the 2 soldiers lying in a pool of blood. They were clearly dead. At that moment, someone spoke up and asked where the other soldier was. Another person shook his head and said they couldn't find him. It seems the situation is more dire than we thought. Tai Vo had frozen to death. Only Tai Van and a few others in the vehicle survived. Someone asked what they should do next, and he thought for a moment before speaking up. "All the soldiers are dead and we don't even know the location of the headquarters. The plan has failed and they have no choice but to return empty-handed." Some time later in a room, a warm fire was crackling. Han Pong suddenly woke up from a daze, shouting about grenades, but when he calmed down and looked around, he frowned and mumbled, "I'm not dead. Where is this place?" A deep voice echoed again. Coming back to his senses, he turned his head in surprise and asked his cousin, "What do you mean back to normal?"
"Aren't we in the basement? How did we end up here?"
"And what about the wounds on my body?" Hearing this, Chin Hao coldly replied, "If you don't even know that, how would I? But regarding the plan of that person named Tuang, if I had any specific clues, I would let him tell you." Saying that, he pointed at the Special Forces soldier tied to the chair and raised an eyebrow, ordering him. "You just said you were sent by the base to negotiate with Tuang who? Negotiate what?" The soldier trembled and replied, "With weapons and food to exchange for the residents here." Hearing this, Han Pong suspiciously asked, "What do you want to exchange for?" The soldier continued, "To help build the base." The more Han Pong listened, the tighter his brows furrowed. "In this situation, instead of reducing the population, you want to expand the workforce. You can't be thinking we're idiots, can you?" "You think you can joke with us?" The soldier, terrified, looked at him and stammered, "It's all to rebuild civilization and help humanity. What we're doing isn't bad." But just as he finished speaking, one of his fingers was snapped by Chin Hao. He coldly asked, "What will happen if you fail the mission?" The soldier, sweating from the pain, gritted his teeth and said, "The base will send more people." Chin Hao leaned close to his ear and asked coldly, "Will there be superpowered individuals coming?" Immediately, the soldier's face turned pale. He avoided Chin Hao's gaze and shook his head, saying, "What superpowered people? I don't understand." Han Pong frowned deep in thought. Judging by this soldier's attitude, it's possible that the base has superpowered individuals. However, looking at what the base is doing, if there are superpowered individuals, the likelihood is that they would be enemies. Chin Hao is indeed too ruthless. Without saying a word, he acted to kill. Han Pong frowned and asked him, "Is it really necessary to kill him now?" He coldly refused to give his opinion. "Do you believe the nonsense about saving people he just said? Don't be delusional. It's just a new force. Who knows what they plan to do now? Either we eliminate them or we have to leave here and find a new shelter." Hearing this, Han Pong nodded. "I'll go back and discuss it with everyone." After leaving Chin Hao's room, Han Pong carefully made his way to where he wanted to go. He walked while thinking about Chin Hao, who was deep and unpredictable. Who knows what his group will do? If what that Special Forces soldier said is true, going out to find the base might be the safest choice. A little later, he arrived at the basement trying to find something. He remembered there were several military vehicles and large bulldozers here, but now he couldn't find them. While searching, he noticed someone approaching. Just as he peeked out to look, there was no one there. This was a trap. Someone suddenly attacked from behind. He quickly activated the light energy in his hand. He raised his hand to block the incoming attack, unable to help but frown. It didn't hurt at all. I never expected that the blue and purple lights appearing together would have such an effect. While the two were struggling, a voice suddenly rang out, "Stop, we're all family here!" Following the shout, the flashlight beam also illuminated the person, and it turned out to be Chi Nien. The group gathered together, and Han Pong recounted everything to everyone. This is how it happened. That's why I came back here to find a way to leave the death residential area. Upon hearing this, I was outraged. That so-called friend of the commander is truly a beast for using the residents to exchange for supplies. Chi Nien hesitated and said, "But if we could take the residents to a place where they can survive, it wouldn't be a bad thing." Han Pong shook his head in response, saying that helping to build the base was just one-sided talk from that soldier. If it were truly a good thing, those guys would have already run away to avoid trouble. Do we really need armed escorts? Moreover, there are many things about the base that cannot be explained. In short, their words cannot be fully trusted. But we also can't dismiss them entirely. Whether there's any basis for it is still unknown. Chi Nien continued to ask, "So what if someone really comes?" Han Pong calmly replied, "That's a matter for later. If we can't find a means of transportation, we won't be able to get out. I'm counting on everyone." Chi Nien nodded slightly. "Got it. You go check those 2 vehicles. See if there's any usable equipment." Chi Nien also went to the back to check. Han Fong approached several vehicles, but the keys had all been removed. Just as he was feeling desperate, Chi Nien's astonished voice rang out. "Hey, come here quickly. Oh my God, there are so many weapons." Han Pong quickly ran over and indeed saw a vehicle full of weapons. He signaled to Chi Nien to call the middle school kid over to gather these things. "We'll definitely need them." Chi Nien nodded slightly. "Good idea." Han Pong examined the vehicle in front of him. It had melted down like this, probably due to something he had done. Chi Nien was about to call the girl Ta Vuong when he noticed 2 girls standing in front of a large curtain. He muttered suspiciously, "What are those 2 doing?" Han Pong also looked in that direction. After thinking for a moment, he suggested, "Let's go over and take a look." Soon the 4 of them gathered in one place, looking at what was in front of them. Han Pong asked suspiciously, "Why is there such a large curtain?" Chi Nien also chimed in. "It seems like there's some sound coming from behind it." Han Pong glanced at the girl Ta Vuong and asked, "Do you have a brighter flashlight?" The girl nodded slightly and took out a flashlight from her space. Han Pong and Chi Nien stood on either side of the curtain and then counted down to pull it down. Just a moment later, the curtain was removed. What was inside was revealed, and the expressions of the 4 immediately turned serious. In front of them was a tunnel whose destination was unknown. At this moment, Han Pong could confidently say, "There really is a base.